All right, you boys and girls, welcome back to the S.E.M podcast. Zack, Hewlett, and Jack Bryce here tonight, and we are joined by our friend Dan Ney. Dan, what part of the world you calling from today?
Spanish Fork, Utah.
The FARC.
Yep.
Well, good. We're excited to have you. Have you been listening to the podcasts and familiar with the format?
Yeah, I've watched quite a few, I think. Pretty familiar with it.
Awesome. Well, we can just roll from there. Go ahead and give us the backstory of your lead up to Scotland, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so leading up, I think it was pretty typical. I expected myself to go on a mission. It wasn't a surprise at all. Going, I worked for the summer, and then just saving up money, getting ready to go. And I have two cousins that are pretty close in age to me, and they both got their calls, I think the same week. But it was a couple months ahead of me. And I heard from my one cousin, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to Ukraine." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I, hadn't really thought about that. My other cousin on the other side of the family, he called, and he said, "You'll never guess where I'm going." I said, "Ukraine." He's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" I said, "My other cousin's going there." He's like, "Oh man, like you just ruined my surprise." But
Wow.
They ended up going. So I had thought for quite a while, I want to go foreign English speaking, and there's not a whole lot of those. But I hadn't really thought of Scotland. But I thought English speaking foreign to be perfect. I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time in the MTC. I don't have to learn a new language. I can just go and get out of the States.
Yeah.
So when they thought that, I had kind of some expectations, I think, to go to Ukraine. I was like, perfect. Go to Ukraine, serve with those guys. It'll be great. And I was cutting stone up right next to the Salt Lake Temple. That's what I was doing at the time. And my dad called. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to come get you after work tonight." I was like, "Okay." Like I was kind of expecting, a call to come, but he didn't say anything. He's like, "Yeah, let's grab some dinner. Let's chat." I'm like, "Okay." Like this is kind of weird. This is, you don't normally come pick me up from work in Salt Lake. And he's like, "Yeah, your call's at home, right?" Like, yeah, I expected as much. And I think he's just trying to get that last bit before the pressure of the call was there,
Sure.
A little bit of time right before. And so we grabbed some dinner, kind of hung out a little bit, and then my mom called. Like, "Where the heck are you guys? We're sitting here waiting. What's taking so long?" So we got back, and I think it was before any sort of video calling, and we opened it up. Scotland, Edinburgh was awesome. Was pumped. A lot of my Ney side of the family and my mom's side is all from Scotland, Ireland, England, and there's a lot of Nordic on my Ney side as well, Christensen. So it was kind of heading back to the homeland. And it was awesome. All my parents were super excited. My grandparents, they were really excited, and my family. So yeah, I'm the oldest, so I was the first one to leave. So it's kind of a new experience. I didn't have any older brothers to see how prep or leaving went. It was just me. So it was pretty fun. It was exciting. We had just like a mission prep class that I think Preach My Gospel had just come out, and they had just started like a mission prep class. And I don't really recall before that them doing anything at the ward level before you left. Maybe they did. Jack, you might know if they did any sort of mission prep. But
we had a stake class in my stake, but and then I took one through the institute. But
okay,
yeah, we had one too in our stake. In my childhood stake growing up, it was just kind of a collective of the returned missionaries and the upcoming missionaries that would meet early morning, Sunday morning or something like that. So, but it wasn't geared around preach my gospel until after I got home. So,
yeah, it was all about preach my gospel. They were, excited that it had just come out. It was a big deal. And so we just kind of went through it, and I don't think we really knew what we had at that point. It was like, okay, it's another manual. We didn't have much to compare it to, so great, sounds good. Let's, but I think the return missionaries that were teaching the class had a lot of fire about it, and sometimes it's hard to articulate that to people that haven't been out in the field yet, don't really know. It's hard to really get across how awesome it was and what a big change it was, really. And so it was an interesting class. Yeah.
That's cool. What was the time frame of when you got your call to when you entered the MTC?
So I got my call in, I think, maybe October, November time.
That was 2005, right?
It was 2006, or it was 2005. Okay. And I was just turning 19. So I had graduated and then worked through the summer to save up, and then was heading out. And my call was for March 1st. So I had a few months waiting on visa and passport and stuff, and I was kind of waiting around for a little bit, but had Christmas to spend at home, and get all mission stuff.
And 2 long months after that.
Yeah, that's
yeah. It was a while, but there's plenty of time to prep and get what I needed and get ready, I think. So
cool. So you entered the MTC March of 2006, right?
Yeah. So I left. We took off on February 28th.
Oh wow!
And then it takes like 13 hours to get there. So we flew to, I said goodbye. My little brother, he was 2 at the time, 2 years old. And, it was him and my parents, and everybody else had to go to school. So we just drove up, and I think they were not too happy about it. They were upset. But we'd done some other things kind of before, and it was like, no, I'll go to school. We'll just, mom and dad just want the time. So
yeah,
it was pretty fun. It was good. It was, at that point, the airport had changed. I remember going for cousins and going right down to the gate. But obviously it was, if you don't have a ticket and you stop at security, you don't make it any farther. So,
right.
I made it through security and kind of looked back and waved, and that was it. They were out of there, and made it down to the gate. And, there's 4 or 5 other missionaries. It's like, yep, that's my group. That's the guys that I'm with.
That's cool. So were they also going over to the Preston MTC along with you?
Yeah. And I think we saw a number of other missionaries that were leaving to go elsewhere in the world. But our group waiting at that gate, we're all going to the Preston MTC. Okay. I mean, it's pretty easy to spot the missionaries, right? Suits and a name tag. It's like, oh, there's a couple people. Okay, they're getting on an early flight. So we flew to, I think, Atlanta, and met up with another couple of missionaries, and then made it over. And man, it was a long flight, and it was packed. It was just packed. There was so many people on the flight, and it was so tight. And I'm a big guy. Those are tight seats to sit in and try and sleep overnight, and it was it was a long ways.
It's not your typical bed for a big man.
No, it's not.
Oh man, it's not my cup of tea, that's for sure.
But we made it over pretty good, and got to the MTC. They picked us up, and man, just groggy, just ready to sleep, lay down somewhere, because it was terrible. I remember, I can't remember. I think it might have been Pattinson's older brother who picked us up.
Oh,
he might have still been there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think he said, if you can not fall asleep, it'll be the best thing you can do. Like if you can stay awake today and go to sleep tonight, it'll make a huge difference. And I couldn't do it. I fell asleep in the afternoon and I slept for probably 4 hours. And then I was up all night, just all night I was up, and it was just miserable.
Oh man. Yeah. I think we all have that story of that immediate jet lag. So, all right. Well, before we get too deep into the MTC, let's go to March of 2008 after you got home. What have you been up to since then?
Well, so my flight back was interesting. We left on February 29th, which is President Vriens' birthday, right?
Yeah.
And he was gone at that time, but like, sweet, we're going home on the 29th. It'll be awesome, really memorable. Left right in the morning, and we sat in Heathrow for 4 hours, just waiting and waiting.
Oh man.
And they're like, well, we're up and going now, but we'll see if we can make up our time, but it's going to be tough. So we flew into Chicago, and, everybody's like, well, I hope we get, like my family's all waiting for me. And we get into Chicago, and they're like, guys, you missed your flight by about an hour.
Oh, jeez.
And so, I mean, we were on British Airways, and flying back, there was nobody on the flight. I mean, every missionary had the middle 6 seats to themselves.
Nice.
People were laying down. I mean, it was an empty flight. It was awesome. But we had missed that, the Heathrow connection just killed us. And so we get into Chicago, and they're like, yeah, you missed it, but we've got some vouchers. We're like, okay, we'll take vouchers. There's like a Hilton right next to the Chicago airport. I don't know if you've been there, but the front doors of the airport open, and you walk across a little road, and there's the front doors of the Hilton. So we're like, okay, I mean, we don't really know how to get around Chicago. I guess we'll just go to we'll take the vouchers. And I remember at the gate, they're like, okay, there's 10 of you, you're all in suits. You look like you're doing business. Yeah. We've got 10 vouchers. We're like, oh, well, we only need 5 because we're sharing rooms. We were doubling up. And they're like, it's kind of weird, but okay. Like, it's less vouchers to give out, but it's kind of weird. Yeah. Okay.
Did they put you in like queen bedrooms and you guys had to share beds, or what did you do?
No, I was like twin queens or something.
It was a double bed or something.
yeah, it was fine, but I just remember her looking like, that seems kind of weird. I thought you guys all looked pretty professional in your suits, and this does not sound right. No, it's fine. Just give us that many. We're good. And they gave us like a dinner voucher. And so we all got in. We'd been sitting in that plane forever in our suits. So we all changed into like our grungy P-Day clothes, whatever we decided was not so bad that we would take home, but still pretty rough. We're like, great, let's go use this dinner voucher down at the fancy Hilton restaurant. And we all walk in, and we're just wearing, basketball shorts and ratty T-shirts and just terrible. And they're like, you guys really coming to eat here? And we're like, yeah, we got these vouchers. And they're probably like, oh, great. More airplane vouchers. Like, you guys do not belong here. We're looking around. There's people in suits and looking nice. And we're just like, yeah, we're, this is it. This is what I have. I'm not wearing a suit again after that flight. So finally, and then everybody's scrambling to call home. Like, hey, we missed our flight. We'll catch the one in the morning. We're not making it home tonight. And
man,
it was a lot of mixed reactions. Some people were like, oh, great, because we're going to like a basketball game tonight, so we can go make that. That's awesome. We'll get you tomorrow. And some people, their mom's crying on the phone, and they're I was expecting to see you. I have to wait. And it was just it was pretty funny,
man.
So yeah, I mean, we got up the next day, got in just fine, and it was just funny. It was, disappointing that we couldn't go home on the 28th, but ended up being exactly the year on the 1st. We're like, okay, I guess, it was meant to be. Had to do the full 2 years. Couldn't skip a day.
Yeah, that's right. They made you take one extra day.
Yeah, one extra. So
the one bonus day every 4 years. That's too good.
yeah.
Oh man, that's quite a story. All right, so you're home. What's life been like since getting home?
It's been good. Been really good. That we had gotten home, and I'm a big hunter. I've been for the hunt every year. Love to go for big game. I go for birds. I go fishing through the summer, camping, whatever I can. And my dad had put me in for a once in a lifetime buffalo hunt in Utah, and it's a pretty big deal hunt. I mean, they only give out like 30 tags, and my dad's still putting in for it. He's got 24 points, so he's been putting in for it for 24 years.
Oh my god!
And we got back, and after a couple months, you kind of get a sneak peek when your bank account gets hit. It's like, oh, that's $120. That's a deer tag. I think I got it, because they usually announce what you get, a day or two after it hits your account. So if you're watching your bank account, you can see, oh, I got some, And he's telling me, hey, I just have a feeling you got the buffalo tag. I'm like, what? 2 points? No way. Not a chance. I mean, it's a lottery, so you do have a chance, but I mean, nobody draws like that. And it comes out, and I got a buffalo tag, and I am so excited. 2 points. I get to go shoot. And I'm like, well, there's all my blessings from the mission right there, used up.
Immediate cash out.
Oh yeah. So we went on the buffalo hunt. It was incredible. It was, we went and scouted a ton. It's down by the Henry Mountains, which is just a desert, just this barren wasteland down by Lake Powell, southeastern Utah. And then out of nowhere, there's this big mountain that just rises up out of this desert. And there's a wild herd of buffalo there, clear back from the 1820s. There was a rancher who rounded up some of the very last wild buffalo in the U.S. And he kept them on his ranch, and he kept them separate from cows, because cows and buffalo can intermix and kind of
beefalo
cause some weird stuff. Yeah, beefalo. So he kept them, and they're the most pure herd of buffalo. He had them for probably 10 years, and then the government asked him to release them into this area. So he released them, and they thought they all died off for 10 or 15 years before anybody saw them again, because it's just a massive area. I mean, it's huge. And so it was awesome. I could go with my family. We scouted a ton. We went and saw them. Even scouting, we didn't see any until the last day. And then we were able to sneak up on this satellite bull through these trees, and we got about 20 feet from it. And I mean, they're just massive. And we kind of got that close, and it was me and my dad there. And he kind of looked back. He's like, hey, if it decides to charge us, make sure you have a tree to jump behind. And there's aspens that are, just an inch around. It's like, all right, I got this aspen. I'm ready. Because it's huge. And if it decided to, you see those videos from Yellowstone, it definitely could charge at us if it decided to, but it ended up just walking off, and it was a pretty cool experience. And we ended up, that one got taken, and we ended up getting one, and it was just a great experience. I shot it pretty close, and we got it out, and it's hanging up in my house now.
Yeah, I'm sure your dad's probably jealous of that.
Oh yeah, he had it at his house for the first 8 years, probably maybe 6 years, until I got married and got a house. And I was like, first thing, buffalo's coming with me. And he had a hard time letting go. Had a hard time giving it up.
But that's so cool.
Yeah, they had it right at their front door, so you'd walk into the house and it'd be sitting right next to your face. It was like, oh. And I think there's a little bit of an intimidation factor at the house for him. But
that's too good.
Yeah, I took it down. Now it's at my house, and the kids love it. Wife,
nice.
Puts a Santa hat on it every Christmas. And yeah, we love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, I don't know how things can get better, right? After a once in a lifetime hunt, but eventually they did. Eventually I met my wife. I went to UVU, and it was kind of transitioning from Utah Valley State College to Utah Valley University at the time, mostly a trade school. And I was into like drafting and construction management type stuff at the time. And I had to take kind of a random class that I was trying to make up, and just like a general. And I thought, well, I'll take this like dance class. Can't get any easier than that, right? Easy A. And I ended up meeting some people there. I actually met my wife's sister there, and I was like, "Oh, you guys should come like country dancing." I did that with my buddy. We'd go. There's a big one in Provo, and it was fun. Great way to meet a lot of people. And so they eventually came on a night that we were there, and I met her, and we started hanging out and dating afterwards. And it was funny because we kind of dated a little bit through the summer, and then started into the fall. And all of a sudden I was like, all right, I'm out of here this weekend, probably the first couple of days of the week. It's the deer hunt. I'm gone. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're gone. We're like just getting like serious dating. Like, yeah, like I'm out of here. This is it. This is my priority. I'll see you next week.
My true love came into town. I'll see you later.
Yeah. And now she says, well, I guess I'm just a hunting season widow. My husband's gone during the hunts, but at least I set the precedent early.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure there's plenty of those in Utah and all over the place, right?
Yep. But yeah, it was
That's too funny.
Yeah, so we ended up getting married the next summer, and just been married 10 years now. This last summer.
That's awesome.
And we've got 4 kids. Our oldest, it's a girl. She'll be 9. She was born on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And so that was an exciting first child. And yeah, it was exciting. Christmas Eve, it's pretty dead at the hospital. Nobody wants to be there. But it was awesome. We had a great time. Little new bundle of joy. Everybody came to visit us. My parents brought a great big like Christmas breakfast in the hospital, and they're pulling out tins of bacon and eggs, and my mom's like, "Yeah, we had to bring it all for you. Here you go." And, well, this is a lot better than hospital food. I'll tell you that.
That's great.
Yeah. So she loves it though. She loves all the parties and decorations and Christmas stuff. So she's excited. And then my son, he's 5. I've got a daughter who's 3 and a daughter who's 9 months now, I think.
All right.
It's a diverse group.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It gets a little crazy, but it's pretty fun.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
what do you do for work?
Yeah.
So I kind of fell into work when I got back. Before I left, I had been working with a mason company, and I was cutting limestone for it's called the Zions Tower Bank. It's a great big 20-story tower right next to the tabernacle, right across the street. So before the mission, I'd go and my lunch, I'd take a big cooler, and me and the other guy that I worked with, another kid that had just graduated from high school. We were both kind of looking at missions, and we'd go over and sit at the big reflection pool, Temple Square, and pull out our sandwiches and have our lunch. And it was great. It was, we'd hang out and watch what was going on. Great place to sit and have lunch in the summer for sure. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll get back into that or something. But I ended up going to a job fair, within probably a month of getting home. And I talked to some people that install automatic pool covers, swimming pool covers. and they're like, yeah, you should come and check it out. It'd be great. And so I went over there, and the guy I talked to was awesome. And so I started working there every summer. And then right after I got married, there was an open position inside the factory as an account manager. And because the manufacturing is here in Utah.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I moved in there, and I worked there for 5 years, and then kind of thought I was getting a little stale. And I had a buddy that worked at a company in Utah that does insurance adjuster software. So they run a product called Exactware, but it pretty much live at any point. If you have a claim, will price everything in your house and everything to build your house. I mean, down to the cent. And it was. I mean, they know the price of wood in every single zip code. They know the price of every single thing in Walmart going back like 35 years, something like that. I mean, it's a pretty cool tech company. I worked there for a little bit. It was awesome. And then the cover company called me up and they said, hey, we want you back if you're interested. So I ended up going back there, and that's where I was for COVID. And it was nice. I got to come home, work from home the whole time. And then about 8 months ago, right after my daughter was born, I moved to a construction company. So totally different swing, but to a construction company where I am now, and it's awesome. And my group builds like Amazons and UPSs and just massive, $100 million projects. And it's pretty cool.
So
it's pretty different.
Industrial.
Yeah. It's a big swing from going from, a backyard residential swimming pool cover that costs $6,000 or $7,000 to this job's only $200 million. Like, well, it's a mental shift for sure, but it's pretty cool, pretty fun to be involved in.
Nice.
So,
good for you. That's really cool.
That's what we're doing now.
Well, good. All right. Well, take us back to the MTC and your experience there, and then just run through Scotland and just talk about companions, favorite people, stories, all the works.
So back to the MTC. I mean, that first day was terrible. I'm so tired. But after that, it was good. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was one of the apostles died while we were in the MTC. And I can't remember who it was, but I remember their funeral was broadcast on like KSL, and we got it at the MTC. And so they had that one big room with a big projector, and we all went in there and watched it. And then, watched the hearse drive into the cemetery, and people are like, oh, they're going to drive right past my grandma's house. Hold on, watch. Yep, there it is. There's, people are pointing out stuff. And, there's, I think my parents probably wanted to see it. See if we can see them. Okay. Watching KSL again. We did that. And the mission home had a pond right behind it, if you guys remember. Or not the mission home, the MTC.
Yeah.
And I saw it and I thought, man, I wonder if there's any fish in there. And our intro meeting, the mission president gets up and he says, hey, elders, last transfer, somebody ran some string out to that pond and tried fishing in it, and I don't want to see any of that this time. It's like, gosh dang it, somebody else already thought of it. And they had taken some some floss and run it out through their window and rigged up a little bobber and set it, and we're just hoping to catch something.
Oh my God.
Man, who the heck did that? That's a great idea.
It's a queen's fish.
Yeah.
That's right. That's too good.
Yeah, it was.
I never thought that it was January and there's no way I wanted to be outside fishing.
I mean, it it just wasn't as cold there. It didn't seem like, because it was raining.
Yeah, that's true. I can understand that.
But before we left, I mean, we were supposed to be there, I think, for 14 days, and we only ended up being there for 10 or 12 days. We cut it a little bit short, and I think we missed some of the street chapping because of that.
Mm-hmm.
We went early to make a transfer. So I can't remember why, but right before we left, it snowed really, really bad. And there was snow in Preston. And, you know, some of the English missionaries are like, oh, it never snows. This is awesome. We rarely get to see this. And obviously from Utah, like, well, it snows every season, you know, it snows all the time. I get to see it. But there were other missionaries, I think, kind of like you, Jack, from Arizona. We're like, man, I've never seen snow. This is awesome.
Still a novelty for me.
Oh, yeah. So there were people out making snow angels, and we had snowball fights, and it was great fun. My companion was Elder Zacharias.
Nice.
Just a mountain, you know. Who's had to duck into every door.
Yes, indeed. Made big men like us feel small.
Yeah, he just was so tall. Yeah, he was an interesting, fun guy. I mean, he was pretty quiet, and I think he was very contemplative.
Right.
But he definitely wanted to be there, and he had a great attitude, I think. So we took off on the train, got up to Edinburgh, and there was a ton of snow on the ground. I mean, it had snowed a ton, and the APs picked us up, and I think they took us to the mission home. And then it might have been later in the day, or maybe they didn't take us to the mission home. Maybe we just went to the bed and breakfast. And I remember everybody was so gung ho, you know, oh, we're gonna get all these contacts on the train. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. It was great, you know. And everybody was trying to strike up conversations. And we get there, and they're like, "Okay, guys, we know you're excited. Do not talk to this bed and breakfast owner about joining the church. He's heard it enough. We want to keep this deal we have with him. He's nice enough to put up all the new missionaries. Please don't like seriously, day one, you're telling me this? I'm not supposed to talk to this guy?" They're like, "Do not talk to him, okay? He's already heard it. Like, enough." Like, okay. They say, you guys need to be up. You know, we'll be here at 7:30 to pick you guys up. And after they leave, he's like, "All right, guys, they're never here until 8:30 at the earliest. I'm gonna have breakfast ready at 8." We're like, "I don't know. They said they'd be here at 7:30. We probably won't have time to eat breakfast." He's like, "We'll have plenty of time to eat breakfast. Like, I'm gonna have a big English spread, full breakfast." Okay. So all the missionaries, you know, we're up at 6:30, bright and early. He's got a few bagels out, and some people are like, "Oh, I better eat my bagels because they're gonna be here any minute." He was spot on. He was, you know, he was. They showed up at 8:15, and they came in. They sat down and had breakfast. And they're like, "Oh yeah, this guy makes the best breakfast. This is awesome." Like, you suckers, you knew exactly what you're doing. And he's just like, "I can't believe you guys got up that early. You should have just slept in the extra 30 minutes. And I told you they weren't going to be here."
That's too good.
I think Pullen was the AP at the time. And I remember hearing his episode, and he said that he would take around the new missionaries and make up stuff. Yeah. And I remember that because every single statue was like, "Oh, look at this. This is William Wallace from when he was doing this. Oh, look at this. This is so, oh, that's you know, that's this member of the church. Yeah, they love him here. That's so, oh, this, you know," and just making up everything he could think of and telling us. And for the first little bit, everybody's like, "Holy cow, this is amazing. How do you know all this stuff? This is awesome." You know, and 15 minutes in, it's like, "I don't know about this. This is," you know, finally, when somebody mentions it, he just busts up laughing, and he thinks it's so hilarious. And it was pretty fun. It was pretty funny looking back on it. But I remember they said, "Oh, you know, we always take the new missionaries up to Pratt's Hill." It looks pretty snowy today. I mean, there was probably a foot of snow. I mean, it was. I mean, it didn't seem that deep to me from Utah, but definitely to everybody there. Like, it shut down stuff. It was a ton of snow, and he's like, "I don't think we can make it." We're like, "Well, we got to go somewhere. Like, you said this is a big tradition. Let's do something." He's like, "We'll take you to this second Pratt's Hill. Yeah, it's this second place that not a whole lot of people know about." So he drove us up on, I think it was just up on like Edinburgh University campus, this place, and there was kind of a hill there, and that's where that's where my group like did their original dedication, and man, and then afterwards, every time somebody brought up Pratt's Hill, I was like, so what? I haven't been there. I went there once, like in the middle of my mission. Or no, I went there at the end of my mission. That was the first time I went there. It was at the very end. And I remember our group, President Fredrick's, he's like, "Yeah, we got to go to Pratt's Hill." And we were all like, "We don't want to go to Pratt's Hill. We want to go to Edinburgh University. We know where the spot is. Take us over there. I have nothing to do with this spot. I don't know what this Pratt's Hill garbage is. Like, let's go to where and man. He wasn't having it. No. It's got to be here." I'm like, "Fine, whatever. It doesn't really mean anything to us." But I mean, we went there to finish it off. It was like, this place sucks. Everybody's like, this is an important spot. And we're just like, well, it's not that important to me. I want to go over to the university. That's where I was. Yeah.
That would be a little strange.
Yeah, but it was good to get up on it and see it once. I mean, I had never served in Edinburgh, so it was good to see it one time at least.
Yeah,
pretty cool place, but definitely did not have the same meaning as the rest of the mission. Yeah, when I told people that on the mission, they're like, "What? You didn't go there?" Like, no, it was too much snow. Like those dang APs, they just didn't want to walk up it. Like, well, yeah, maybe so. I don't know.
It was Doug Pullen, definitely.
Yeah, but
love you, Doug.
So yeah, we got back to the mission home. Did all the stuff there, and got our companions. I got Elder Barber, who was awesome. He was really fun. I was excited to have an English elder first out of the gate. Really dive in and experience it. And we jumped on the train to leave, and we got in our seats, and he fell asleep. He's like, "I am so tired from today." And I'm sitting there next to him, like, "Man, should I go talk to people?" I'm like, "I'm really tired too." And the trains, man, I don't know what it is, but they just have that rocking and just put you right to sleep. If you sit there for 5 minutes on a train, you're out. It's
true.
The next thing I think I remember is, "Hey, we're here. Oh, let's get your stuff and head over." Okay. So we got up to that that flat in Aberdeen. We got there, the high rise, and man, that thing was rough. It was a rough flat.
Yes,
but,
it was.
It was my first flat. I didn't know any better.
Yep.
Got in, and he said, "Well, you get the single bed over here with 3 mattresses on it. That's like a hammock, and I'm taking that queen." He's like, "When I moved into this area, I had the hammock bed, and my companion did the same thing to me. So you get that one now." And he had rigged up. He'd stuffed, I think, an extra comforter underneath the middle of the mattress to try and lift it up a little bit because it had broken through.
Oh my!
He's like, "I kind of fixed the bed for you. Like, it's a lot better than when I started." Like, "Oh, thanks." It's amazing.
Word! Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was, and the sun would rise so early there that they had put tinfoil on the window, just in the room because it would get so bright and it cut like right through the other buildings, right into where you're sleeping. And I mean, in the summer, it would get light at like 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was like, we gotta cut that light. It is not time to get up yet.
Oh man, so many memories in that flat. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was. We had. I can't remember. I was there for 4.5 months, and at some point, it started smelling in the hallway pretty bad, and we could not figure out what it was. We couldn't really smell it in the apartment, but as soon as you opened the door, you could smell it. It was like, something's wrong, right? And we came back from Chapin one day at lunch, and there was a medic there, like a whole setup, and a coroner's truck. And the lady across the hallway from us had died. And she was like this old lady, and she had probably 12 cats, right?
Oh no.
And they were pulling out. I mean, we asked the guy, and he's like, it was really bad in there. But they were pulling it. I mean, this lady was dead, and I don't know how much of her was potentially eaten by these cats, but there were, I think, dead cats in there too. And like, it was so bad. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we're just not going to be here anymore. We're leaving. So we went back out. Like, I don't know if they're going to tell the next people that some lady died in there and potentially got eaten by her cats. Just like an old person that nobody had, like, she was probably just on the dole, you know, getting her pension, nothing. Nobody knew about her. And
oh my word.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
The fact that the missionaries didn't move at that point in time is very concerning. That's crazy.
You know, stuff happens. We're in Scotland, right? What's the big deal? I remember I got shocked. I was with Barber, and he was having some tooth pain. And this is what like shocked me more than anything. He was having some tooth pain. So he's like, we got to go to the hospital. I got to go get this checked out. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, we'll go to a dentist. I go to a dentist at home. No big deal, right? I'm sitting there in the waiting room. Like, he leaves. I'm like, well, you can't just leave me here. Like, do I need to be together? He's like, just wait in the waiting room. It's not that big a deal. I'm a brand new missionary. I can't just like wait out here. But okay, I guess you're the senior companion. So it goes in, and probably, no joke, 15 minutes later, he comes out. He's like, all right, we're all done. He's like, but can you see, like, when I smile, you see anything? They had pulled his tooth. And it was one a little bit farther back. They pulled it in like 15 minutes. It was gone. He's like, yeah, I had this like cavity or something. They took it. They took the tooth. It was the faster thing to do. And he's like, as long as you can't see it when I smile, like, I'm cool with it. I'm like, what? Like, this is what healthcare is here? They just pull your tooth and send you on your way? He didn't even come out with like pain medicine, I don't think. He just on his way. And he's English, so he's like, yeah,
he's Brian freaking Barber, my God.
Yeah, that's what happens. Like, holy cow, this is crazy. Like, let's go chap some doors, Elder Nay. You just got your tooth pulled out. You sure okay? Like, yeah, no big deal.
Oh, he didn't share that on his podcast.
Oh,
that's
man,
hilarious.
he was nuts.
He probably forgot about it. He was in true pain, and he didn't tell you the truth.
Probably. Well, I mean, the reason is probably I'm a big dude, and I like to wrestle around a little bit. And he was like, all right, let's wrestle one night when we were at home. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. He's like, you got to give me like a head start though. So we start wrestling, and the floor in there was like, it was concrete. I mean, there was a little tiny bit of carpet, but there was no padding. It was concrete. Mm-hmm. And we started wrestling, and he got me in a headlock on my knees, and I lifted him up over me and back. And it wasn't like slow. I just kind of reacted to it and flipped him over. And he had a huge rug burn all on the side of his face. And he was he was like, oh. And he went downstairs, and I was like, okay, maybe it got a little too intense, too quick. I'm just going to let him go cool off. And he came up probably an hour and a half later. And I was on the couch upstairs. It's like, I'm going to let him cool off. Like, don't want to be a problem. And he came up and he's like, man, what is going on? What are you doing up here? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's been like an hour and a half. What have you been doing? He's like, it's been like 2 minutes. What are you talking about? And he looked at me and his like dilated so much. I swear he had a concussion from it. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, dude, you probably have a concussion. Like, I didn't think I smashed you that hard, but like his whole face was big old raspberry, like rug burn. He's like, so we stayed up for like a little bit, and he's like, let's just go to sleep. Like, if there's an issue tomorrow. And now looking back, I'm like, that was the wrong thing to do. Like, to let him go to sleep and then to just be like, oh, whatever. I guess we'll just sleep it off. And in the morning, if there's an issue, we'll know about it. Like, that's not how you treat a concussion at all. But he's tough.
We're missionaries. Somebody's watching over us.
Man. So that could be why some of our time is a little hazy. See, he definitely was concussed.
That makes so much sense.
He was, I was like,
wow.
Sorry, dude.
That's too funny.
He had a tradition with his companions where they would do some sort of a companionship like strengthener. I can't remember what he called it. Companionship unifier. That's what it was. Companionship unifier. Mm-hmm. And so, with he'd gotten like hoodies made in one district, and it had all the missionaries silhouetted across the top. And it was pretty cool. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's a cool hoodie." They'd taken some picture, and there were a couple other things. So we went and we found these belts with great big old belt buckles, and they were blank. And there was an engraving shop just down the street from our flat. So we got it engraved to say Nay and Babs on it. And I wore that thing for the rest of my mission, Nay and Babs on this big old belt buckle. I was like, yeah, this is my first companionship unifier. This thing's awesome. Oh, and
that is pretty epic.
I'd see him at Zone Conference sometimes. He'd have it on. I was like, yes, okay, this is good. Finally, it was pretty cheap, so finally, like, it broke off. But I've still got the plate somewhere in my mission stuff. It was like that was a good companionship unifier. I thought it was pretty awesome.
That is cool.
I remember my first night there. Not my first night. We went and saw somebody my first night, and then I got settled, and then the next day, I think it had to have been. I can't remember now. Maybe it was Friday, because it seemed like the next day was Saturday. And we went out, and then he's like, "Oh, we have this great investigator. We got to go meet him." And his name's Brady. It's gonna be awesome. Like he's solid. He's so ready. So we go down there, and he's like, "Oh, and after that, here, let's throw in some P-Day clothes, because after that, we're gonna go see some other guys, and we're gonna go play football first thing in the morning with a bunch of ward members." I was like, sweet, okay. So we get there, and we pull into the flat, and we sit down. It's these two guys, and they're sitting there listening to me bear my testimony and tell them about Joseph Smith, and one of them reaches over and he's rubbing the other one's leg. And Barbara's like, He's like, yeah, we're really excited about this. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And they couldn't take it anymore. They start busting up laughing. And it's Ford and Hess. And we were at the Bridge of Dawn flat. And they had emptied everything they could that looked like church stuff from the bedroom. And they pulled the one bed out. So it didn't look like there's two beds in this one room. And they're pulling this prank on me. I'm like, you guys suck. I just bore my heart to you, and this is what I get. But it was a fun introduction to those guys. They were a blast.
We're talking to Brady next week. We'll ask him about that story.
Oh man, you got to ask him. It was super funny. It was awesome.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And then we went and played football with him in the morning. We had a sleepover, which I later found out was less than approved. But you know what? Sleepovers were awesome. I was all about sleepovers, and sometimes they were approved and sometimes they weren't. It's like, we're 19-year-old kids that are out here preaching about the gospel. I don't know that a sleepover is really the worst thing that we're doing. And we went out and met like 10 members the next day, and man, those guys love to play football. It didn't matter what shape you were in, what size you came in, all the members were there ready to play dirty, aggressive football.
That's right. Oh,
yeah.
man.
It was pretty fun, though. Yeah, we had some good times hanging out with Ford. Ford was awesome. That's somebody you got to get on. Jason Ford. He's a good dude.
He is a good dude. He was still in Bridgeton when I got to Aberdeen, so I'm very familiar with his love of the sleepover.
Oh yeah,
let's say that.
Man.
I was his own leader, and I was very much in the know.
Oh, we had Midgley and Lineker were there all the time.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they were as big a fan of sleepovers as anybody.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They were like, "Yeah, sounds great. We're gonna go play football in the morning. Let's do it." Yeah, they were a blast. We had a lot of fun with Barber, and I stayed with him for 3 months. He stayed, and I can't remember if Hess left right after that, or maybe it was the next one. But Tomlinson came in as Ford's companion,
and he trained Ben, right?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
And Ben, he's a sweetheart. A guy. He's a big boy, but he just was heart of gold.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, he was pretty fun. So after Barber, I had him for two transfers, and we met Jason Buchan. I don't know if you are familiar with Zack.
Yeah, I remember Jason.
Yeah. So we met him. The Peterhead elders met him at McDonald's, and it was after, I can't remember if it was after a zone meeting or something. For some reason, they were there, and they met him, and he was on, I think, Union Street at the McDonald's, and they were like, "Oh," and he was pumped about it. He's like, "Oh, this sounds sweet. This sounds great. Like, let's talk about it." So they gave us the referral, and we went and met with him, and everybody in the district at some point taught him. And me and Barber committed him, and he was like, "Yeah, sounds great. Let's get baptized." And I think it all happened not within 6 weeks. I think it was 3 months. But I was like, this is great. Everybody's saying it's super hard to baptize. I'm setting my expectations obviously too high to start with as a missionary. But he was awesome, and I got to baptize him, and it was in Aberdeen. There were a ton of members there. It was really cool. It was really good way to start the mission.
If I remember, Jason was always very memorable because he used to bear his testimony with his hands in the air in some way.
Yeah. Yep. That's how we talk. Yeah.
It was the most unique thing that he would get up, and he just felt like he had to have his hands like here, or I don't know. It was just, he felt like he had to have his hands up in order to be sharing his testimony, which I thought it was strange at first, but I got used to it, and he's a good dude.
Yeah, super good dude. I think he's from the Philippines, and he had been. Right. I think he had gone to, I can't remember if it was like Pentecostal church or some other church that's very animated, is where he had gone growing up, and that's where that came from. He's like, and we kind of talked to him about it at first, and we're like, you don't have to do that. Like, he's like, well, that's, growing up, that's how people like expressed. They're feeling the Spirit, and that's how they, when you're talking about God, that's how you express it. We're like, okay, like if that's what if that's how you feel, great, sounds good. Like, We just want to let you know, like, you don't have to do it. Like, it's kind of up to you, right?
That's
And
cool.
yeah, he was a really good guy. We ended up teaching a couple of Chinese people in that area. Grace was one. She was a young lady coming over for schooling, and we would take Angela Buse with us.
Yeah.
And go on teaches with Grace, and she was awesome. She loved it. I remember she had all the Friends seasons, and that's one of the ways she learned English. Where she'd watch Friends all the time to get used to it, right? To hear people talking, to hear conversation, and to learn English faster. I was like, man, that is a really smart idea. And I can't remember where she said she got it from, but she loved watching Friends because it helped her improve her English.
Wow.
And yeah, we'd go and teach her, and it was awesome. The Buse, they were a rock star family, and they had, I want to say it was right before I got there that their dad had died.
Oh,
And
okay.
He had I think he had battled cancer for quite a while, and he had passed, and super sad. I mean, his girls were pretty young. He had a pretty young family.
Right.
And man, they were so stalwart, and they really stepped up as just a very strong family, which was surprising. After that, they were still so strong for the ward.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like they were one of the rock star families of the ward. It was pretty impressive.
They pretty much had a daughter in every entity of the Young Women's, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Because Angela was in YSA, if I remember correct, and then you had Norma and Melanie, and what's the other daughter's name? I'm blanking on it. Anyway, but they're a great family.
Yeah, they were awesome. We at some point there was a transfer that I got to Elder Brock Wilkie.
Oh yeah.
And it was his very last transfer. Well, before that, we went to the temple, and I think it was President, or at the time, Elder Nilsson.
Yep.
That came to Preston, and we all went back down. And it was only a couple months after I'd been there, so it was kind of cool to get a go back so soon. And I remember the Aberdeen zone I can't remember if the other ones, I think everybody was on a tour bus of sorts, but ours left the day before in the morning. And so we drove down all day, and it was like a party on the bus, right? All the missionaries are together, and, it was a zone conference, but you get to hang out and see everybody. And then we got down, and we stayed at the apartments in the temple grounds.
Yeah, I was part of that group because I was in Montrose at the time, which I think the Dundee stake or the Dundee zone did the same thing.
Yeah, I think did we pick up part of the Dundee that one, or maybe have two tour buses? But it seemed like the rest of the mission left at like midnight. Yeah,
they met us there the next morning.
Yeah, they had a terrible ride because they had to get up and ride all night, and we were like, we had a great night's sleep last night. We gotta go to the temple. It's awesome. And they're all just haggard going into this meeting with an apostle. We're all, bright and bushy tailed. Like, this is great. This is nice. I don't know why you guys are so tired.
Yeah. That made a big difference. I felt bad for those that had to come in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
That was a long drive to be there and to expect to be awake through a temple session and then to listen to Elder and Sister Nelson at the time too. So,
well, there were more than a few that did not stay awake through the entire session. I'll tell you that. There were some snores going on, but I didn't blame them. It was a rough ride. Get down there. Yeah, but Elder Wilkie, he was awesome. He was. It was his last 6 weeks, so I was going to kill him off, and it was pretty cool to have somebody with so much experience. And Barber was awesome. He was super chill. And I mean, we'd hit the doors constantly. We were always knocking doors. We'd go see members. I mean, we were working. we definitely had a pace, I would say. And, I had a hard time getting up in the morning. And I can get up if I'm going to go hunting, or I can get up if I'm going to go to work. But to get up in the morning and then sit in your flat for another 3 or 4 hours was just so hard.
Yeah.
You'd always say, all right, Elder Nay, I'll take the first shower, but you at least have to get out of bed. So I'd go up and there was a vent right next to the shower that blew out hot air. And I'd take my blanket up and I'd lay on the ground right there. And it was pretty hard, but I get another 15 minutes like snooze while he took his shower, and then I get in and go to take my shower. Man, that's a Christ-like man right there, letting me have an extra 15. He always takes the first shower.
Yeah,
but
it's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're talking to Brock in the future.
Yeah, so he was awesome, and I ended up only having him as a companion for 2 weeks.
Oh,
but when I got him, like he was a rock star. We were seeing people, and he was like, I don't want to be trunky. I want to push through, but I'm a little trunky. So like, let's not go crazy. And I mean, he, when he moved in, he had all this cool stuff that he's showing me from 2 years worth of collecting. He had, a great big sweater that somebody had knitted for him in one of the areas. And he's sharing all this cool stuff and like, oh, this, these people from this area and this area is great. And this, like, man, I get 6 weeks to soak up all this wisdom. This is great. And, we were going out. There was a game called Hunter where you'd use a squirt gun, and one person would be inside the apartment and turn off all the lights and turn on some music and hide somewhere. And the other companion would then come in, and it was a real cat and mouse to see who got shot first, right? And you make it as dark as you can. And so we had talked to the zone leaders who had helped us discover this game. And they were like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. We should do a 4-person hunter night. We're like, sweet. So we're out looking for, in between chapping doors and talking to people on the high street, we found a little toy store. We're like, sweet, we're going to get some good guns. And we got a call from one of them. They're like, hey, if you haven't bought anything yet, don't buy anything. And probably just go back to your flat. Like, this is weird. So we go over there and they're like, yeah, there's an emergency move that's going on right now. And so Elder McDonald came to be my companion. And he was awesome. And Elder Wilkie swapped with him to be the zone leader. And so he was gone from my life, but he was in the same ward. So I saw him all the time. But then I had Elder McDonald, he was awesome. He was so much fun, and he could talk to anybody. And he, at least for the time we were together, did not like chapping doors as much. But he could GQ all day long. And he'd be like, Elder Nate, let's go GQ. We're going to go on Union Street. It's right outside our flat. And we're going to walk down. And we're going to split up. You go on the other side. And in Aberdeen, there's so many people on Union Street. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy. And there's so much money there, too, in Aberdeen because of all the oil, that these aren't just, I don't know, a lot of them aren't just like regular people, or they're not people that are on government's dime. They're more affluent people, felt like, especially in Aberdeen's center. There's a lot of well-off people.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'd start going and I'd talk to people and I'd look back and he'd be like 10 steps from where we left each other, talking to the first person he talked to. And I'd make it 200 yards down the street talking to people. I'd flip around, come back 200 yards, and be like, he's still talking to this guy. He talked to him for 45 minutes. Be like, man, this guy, he just told me about his cocaine addiction. What are you doing? Like, talking to these people. And he was so good at people would just open up to him, and he could teach a full discussion right on the street. And people, like, the guy he's talking to is in a suit. I'm like, what are you doing to get these people to stop and talk to you for so long? And just pour their life story out to you. What is going on? But he was really, really good at it. And I remember there were a lot of people that would do like UNICEF and other like charities. Hey, give us money for kids in Africa, or stuff like that. And they'd be in that center square in Union Street, and everybody was like, "Oh, I don't have time to talk to you." But we'd even go there, and people would stop and talk to us as soon as they found out that we weren't getting paid. Like, we're not making any money. We're here volunteering all of our time. And they'd be like, "Whoa, really? Well, I'll talk to you." And we got those like UNICEF guys looking at us, glaring at us. Like, how are you getting these people to stop and talk to you? I don't know. Not getting paid, I guess. But yeah, he really showed me how to GQ and how effective it was. How you didn't have to, be knocking on doors. You didn't have to be doing anything. At any time, you could stop and talk to somebody, and it didn't take much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel like I ever got as good as he was. He was just a master at it. He was so good. Stop people, and yeah, they'd always want to talk to him. He was a blast. I think during that time they had the Aberdeen steak fundraiser. Maybe they did that while you were in the ward next year, but
I don't know that I remember that.
So they did a big fundraiser, and they do it every summer, and they would raise a bunch of money, pretty much from the rest of the ward, but it would be to pay for bus fare for all the kids to go down to the temple. And they do a temple trip for all the youth. And so they had like this huge like carnival fair at the church. And it was awesome. It was a blast. And the missionaries, we decided we're going to do an arm wrestling booth. And the stake president, what was his name? I can't remember what the stake president's name.
President Payne.
Yeah, President Payne. And he was a Canadian hockey player. And, he was a tough guy. And he had told one of the youth that he would wrestle him. And I'm pretty sure there were people putting side bets on the wrestle, all in the name of charity. This wrestling match. And he pinned whoever it was, some 15-year-old kid, and just wiped the floor with him, right?
Yeah.
So then we had 4 of us missionaries, because we had the zone leaders and us were in the same ward. And it may have been a stake activity, but I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But he finally said, okay, after that, I'm going to come over and I'm going to beat every one of you missionaries, and I'm going to show you how it's done. And I'm like, okay, sweet. President Payne coming to throw down. I like it. We'd had other people come and they were like, you can pick whoever you want to arm wrestle. And Brock was definitely the smallest guy. He's a little bit shorter, but I mean, he was a tough guy, but he was the smallest, least intimidating. So a lot of people were like, I'm gonna arm wrestle Elder Wilkie. But finally, President Payne came over, and he's like, all right, Elder Nay, let's do this thing. I'm like, okay. And he was talking some big game, talking some smack, and they said go, and I was like, he's going to be tough as nails. I'm going to need to bring it. And I slammed his hand down, and his jaw about hit the floor. He's like, what just happened? He's like, no, I wasn't ready. Let's go again. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, okay, maybe I don't go that hard. But I was thinking, I mean, he's a tough dude. He's always playing hockey, talking about fighting people. Like, okay, you don't want to mess around with President Payne. And I dropped him again. He's like, left hands, let's go. And I dropped him. He's like, the worst dollar I've lost at this whole fair. And it was like, we were doing it for like $1. Like you'd pay $1 or something, or, a pound. And he was so mad about that, but he's a good sport later. He's like, okay, that was pretty good.
Oh man, that's amazing.
It was pretty fun. But that was awesome. We raised a ton of money. People brought like baked goods and I think somebody's doing like face painting and pictures and all kinds of stuff. And I remember, I think I did it again, maybe in Glen Rothes. I did it somewhere else where they did another one just like that.
Huh.
And they did pictures again and like had a big booth and stuff. It was pretty fun. And it was 2 fundraisers. The first one was get the youth down to the temple. And we raised a bunch of money and they all got to go. It was pretty fun.
That's cool. I probably just missed that because I was like the last 6 months of my mission in Aberdeen, which was post-summer into the end of the year.
I don't know if you followed me right after I went, but either that transfer or the next one. I think you probably
the
right
next
after
one.
me.
I think so.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun. I remember, I think it was Heather Curry from Peterhead. The Peterhead elders baptized her, and it was I think it was Bachholt and McCabe who were up there.
Yep.
And they got baptized her, and that was really cool. She'd been coming for a while. I think she was
years,
a little bit more of a dry member.
She'd been there forever because she was there when I was a greenie and Jack trained me. So,
oh man,
I mean,
I remember
been a long time.
It was exciting. We all went up, and it was a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't even know she joined until we talked to McCabe.
Oh yeah,
so that was cool to hear.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience to hear from his perspective because we weren't the ones to do it. It was great on him.
Yeah, she was awesome. I think there was a lot of support. I think there's less youth. Obviously, they're spread out far, kind of few and far between. But it seemed like there was a good youth group and kind of her age, and she was a little bit older at that point, kind of either in YSA or right on the edge of it. And so, like,
I think she was.
Hughes family knew her, and
in the YSA, and the YSA group was unbelievable in the Aberdeen stake. Yeah,
they were just really strong, really, together, and definitely wanted to be cohesive. I remember they did a 4th of July barbecue party that the elders went to, and they set up like beach volleyball. We went and had it on Fun Beach. If you remember, that's what the beach was called. And we got a little, it was called Fun Beach. I was like, man, that's pretty fun. And we went down, and it was great. We went down, and she had Angela had found all of these American like country 4th of July songs. She brought a little like a boom box, and we played that. It's 4th of July. We got one of those little cheap barbecue, that you light once, and they had like hot dogs, and the YSA was there. It was a blast.
That's cool.
It was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, great ward.
Yeah. So, so I know I'm spending forever in Aberdeen. I mean, it was my first area though. Got a lot of love for that place. So we met with a lady who, her friend, I think her friend or somebody very close to her had committed suicide. And I feel like it's like, I hadn't really had a whole lot of exposure to that, but it definitely impacts over there. I would say a lot more than maybe Utah or maybe what I was exposed to. But they've got the seasonal affective disorder that I think is more impactful there with how dark it gets, and Aberdeen is a beautiful city on a couple days or a couple weeks in the year when it's nice and sunny and all the granite sparkles, and the rest of the time it's gray and depressing because it's rainy and overcast. And she had that, and I remember writing President Vriens about it and just saying, hey, I'm dealing with this issue, like, here's what's going on. And just kind of thinking, you know, maybe at some point we'll talk about it, or just trying to kind of get it off my chest. And I got a letter back like within a couple days, and it was a great big stuffed packed letter. And he had printed off 3 or 4 talks from general authorities and photocopied them, stuffed them in this letter, and with a letter to me and saying, hey, you know, this is a really big problem. It's hard to talk about. It's, you know, it's so difficult to discuss with people, and in light of the church, and it's a really important thing. And here's some talks. I hope they help. I hope you can help this person. And it was so heartfelt and genuine. I was like, man, this is
Wow.
This is what a mission president does. Okay, this is, you know, he set the bar pretty high.
That's cool.
And I got, I think, 3 letters from him in the 4.5, 6 months that I was there with him. And they all were just the same way. It was very heartfelt. And I know you're struggling with this, with something that you've brought up. Hey, somebody has this issue. Here's a way to teach about it. Here's some information. Here's something that can help you with this person. And just help them know that God loves them. And, you know, I was like, man, this is okay. This is awesome. And it was like, you set the bar high. And, you know, I think he was at the tail end of his mission, and he had been a missionary, right? So he had 5 years of missionary service, seeing that, and it definitely affected his outlook and his perspective. And President Fredrick tried really hard, but he had not been a missionary, and he didn't have that experience to say, what does a missionary really experience? You know, he hadn't been out knocking on doors. And so I think he struggled with that, especially to start with, on the reality versus the kind of put on a pedestal what you think people are doing. And I just never got that connection with him, you know. And I would say it's my fault, but after writing to him for 8 months, I never got a response. And even when we'd talk, I never felt like he was reading the letters, and I kind of stopped writing them. And I mean, look, President Vriens, he set a very high bar, and it's hard to have that level and compare it to somebody who has never been on a mission and, you know, is kind of thrown into it the last second thinking they're going on a senior mission. And
right.
I mean, it's a tough spot to be in, but yeah, President Vriens was awesome. He was so genuine, so heartfelt. And I felt like you immediately felt that from him. Like the second you saw him, great big hug. And, you know, it wasn't, hey, this is my duty. This is passed on from the last mission president. I guess we'll give everybody a hug. I mean, it was, you know, I love you. I'm here for you. I care about you. And it was pretty awesome to have him for even a little bit that I did.
Yeah, I'm sure I took that for granted, that him having served in Holland before is probably pretty similar experience to what we had in Scotland as far as receptiveness to the church and everything. So, but yeah, that love always came through.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. He's a good president for sure.
I felt the same way as you, Dan. You know, it was a pretty intense change in the leadership when the Fredricks came in and the Vriens went home, and it was almost palpable, right? You were able to feel that difference in a way that, you know, it's not like we had experienced that before, or it was just something where we were like, hey, we're running full speed ahead on the experience of the Vriens, and everything just kind of came to a screeching halt, and everything kind of had to reestablish itself, and it did, right? But it, you know, I had the last 6 months of my mission with the Fredricks, and it was hard. It was definitely not the same, and as a result, it felt a little like things were dragging and things like that. But I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely changed. I remember Sister Vriens would give out those huge cookies, right? And that lasted about one transfer with Sister Fredrick's. And then she's like, I'm not making those cookies. I'm not doing that. No way. And that died off when Sister Vriens left. It was gone. I was like,
oh.
I never got a big cookie. I was like, I've been waiting for that. Terrible. I've been seeing it. I never got a big cookie. Yeah, it was, man.
Just call out Sister Fredrick right now and be like, I'm still waiting for my cookie.
You know what? I am waiting for that cookie.
There's no excuse, really. They were made by a sister in Edinburgh.
That's right.
You just got to come and take credit for it.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're good. All right. Take us to the next spot on the trip.
Sorry, I'm taking
after every. No, you're good.
So Gala Shields. Glen Rothes. Sorry, I've got some notes written so I can remember at least the order. Glen Rothes. I get the call for the transfers. My new companion calls Colin Kilgore. Elder Kilgore is going to be new companion. He is the district leader. Oh, Barbara was the district leader. And then I can't remember what happened during the 6 weeks because I think Wilkie was going to be the district leader. I can't remember who was the district leader at that point. But then I get Kilgore and he's the district leader. I'm like, sweet, district leader's companion. And not to throw any shade on the sisters, but sisters called like 5 nights a week and complained to Elder Barber about their companion. And then I got Elder Kilgore, and we had sisters in our district again, and he'd be like, Elder Nay, you got to take this call. I cannot talk to him again. So then half the time it was me, like, I'm sorry that Sister so-and-so is mean to you today, or she didn't walk at your pace, or I'm sorry that you had an argument. Like,
are you going to call him out or not?
I can't remember who it was.
That's a blessing, I guess. Yeah. Sisters I always had in my districts were great. They only called me when they had people they needed interviewed for baptism. So
I remember Sister Cooper was in the first area, and I don't think they had any issues. She was awesome. And they would call more than elders, and they were up on the Shetlands. So they were like clear up and alone by themselves and be like,
okay,
we need to talk to somebody. Like, there's nobody here. Okay.
That's fair.
But you guys already talked to Sister Cooper. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So Elder Kilgore calls me. He's like, Elder Nay, can you drive a stick shift? I'm like, yeah, I can drive a stick shift. He's like, great. You need to catch the first train to get here because nobody can drive a stick shift. And I can't remember who his companion was, but they were leaving. And it was him and then Elder, I want to say Briggs and Boughton were in Kakati. Mm-hmm. And they're both English, so they can't drive. They're like, we're stuck here at the train station. We have a car. Nobody can drive it. And he had never driven stick, so he could only drive automatic. He's like, we need you to get here ASAP so you can drive for us and get us around.
Wow.
So geez. I pulled in, and we hadn't had a car in Aberdeen, me and Barber and McDonald and Wilkie. We hadn't had a car. The zone leaders had a car, and they'd drive us around occasionally. But I got in, and they're like, all right, have at it. I was like, well, at least I have ridden in a car occasionally in Scotland before you guys throw me into this one to drive. Like, great, okay. Luckily, Glen Rothes is a little more rural than like downtown Aberdeen or Edinburgh or something like that, where it's like, learn to drive in the middle of the city. So I had to learn pretty quick how to drive on the other side of the road.
Got your roundabout experience there, though.
Oh, yeah. There's a roundabout right outside the train station. Like,
that's right.
All right. Let's just have into it and we'll get it over with. Yeah,
that's too funny.
It was exciting. We had, I remember we had a Disney tape. We had a tape deck in that little Vauxhall Corsa. And there's a Disney tape in it. And we would listen to that thing all the time. It was awesome. And then it would get to the end and it would play double speed going back. And so it'd play everything on the other side, but it played twice as fast. So, man, we get so good at singing those songs at twice speed. Like, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. My kids are shocked that I can sing that and say it backwards. I can sing it twice as fast and say it backwards because I listened to that tape so many times, and we were like, this is the tape that we have. This is what we play.
Jeez.
And then I had a car in another area down in Galashiels, and we had the S.E.M, songs of the S.E.M. So we listened to that all the time. That was the other tape that we had. But yeah, we would sing like one tape's worth of Disney songs all the time. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. Kilgore, he was a worker for sure. He wanted to get stuff done, and he had done like some MMA training and fighting before his mission. He's a tough guy. And so he was always like, Elder, we need to go to areas where missionaries have been too scared to go. Where's the places with red X's that said, do not go here? And I'm a pretty big guy. He's like, we can do it, Elder Nate. Let's do this. So we'd go into we'd find the areas that were pretty rough. And we'd be like, all right, let's do this. Nobody's going to mess with us. We're in we can both handle ourselves. We're in the rough parts of town. And we'd go in and we see Neds all the time. And they'd get chirping and talking at us across the street, and he was fearless. Once they started chirping, he'd beeline for him. He'd be like, all right, let's do this. He'd go right to him, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, he'd be best friends with him. They'd be joking and laughing and talking, and I don't know that we got a whole lot of teaches out of it, but they definitely, I feel like in the area, had a much more positive look on missionaries. And earlier, I can't remember if it was right before that or right after that, somebody got beat up in Glasgow. They got hit with a golf club, one of the elders. I think it was while I was there, or maybe right before. It was two really small elders, and then they shut down the area. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Someone mentioned it on one of our past conversations. I'm trying to remember who said that.
I never heard the golf club one.
Yeah, they got beat up, and somebody got his skull split open. Had to get stitches.
Jeez. But
it was two really small guys in Glasgow, and they just got jumped. And
I'm glad I think
that fired up Kilgore.
Glad you repaired Ned relations in Glenrothes.
Yeah,
I was there in the winter when it was dark, and I would confront the Neds too, but they just ran away. They would never talk to me. It was my last area, so I was like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. They'd throw a rock or something, and I'd start running towards them, and they'd take off.
Yeah, Kilgore, he I don't know. He was awesome at it.
They probably thought you were the Bobs, the Bobbies.
I know they did.
We got that a lot. Because I remember it was like every missionary had the great big black raincoat, rain slicker. Like, yeah, we do look like them.
That's right.
So Jack, when you were there, did you have the tie distribution factory? Did you know about that when you were there?
I think I made it there towards the end.
Okay.
In an industrial park, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So my first week, it was on a Wednesday from noon to 1. It was the only time, and you go in the back door, and they'd open this door, and you'd go in, and it was ties and belts and wallets, right? And it was this place, it was like a distribution factory for Next and nicer stuff. And you go in and be like, oh, ties for $2.
Yeah.
And oh man, we would go to that place every single week. We made a point. We have it in our planners. We'd schedule it. We're going to be there on time. We're going to be there 10 minutes early, and we're going to be ready to go. We're going to have cash in hand. We're going to this backdoor deal and getting ties. And we'd show up, and they're like, oh yeah, come on in. And they'd have boxes of ties laid out and all this stuff. I'm like, ooh. And it was always like, what'd you get this time? Oh, I got 5, That's it. I only got 5 ties, but they were so cheap. It was this is 1 or 2 Walmart ties for Asda ties, and we'd get them, and it's awesome. So that's where I got my tie collection from. Was Glenrothes.
I got a few there for sure, and they were good quality too.
Yeah, they were
them.
really nice.
Yeah.
I've still got mine. They were awesome. They're good ties. I still wear them to church.
Amazing.
So yeah, I was with Kilgore, and then he left, and I got Elder Marsh.
Oh, nice.
I think. Well, no, he got emergency transferred somewhere else. I can't remember where. Elder Marsh came to me, and it was in one of those like 3 or 4 transfers where nobody really knows. We're going to move a bunch of elders, so nobody knows what's going on, and only like 2 people actually know why people are getting moved. So I don't know what happened, but Colin went somewhere, and it was like 5 weeks in, so it was like a full transfer, and Marsh came to me. No, that's wrong. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I was with Kilgore for a full one, and then I got Marsh, and Briggs got pulled out. He got sent somewhere, and Boughton came with us, with me and Marsh. So we were in a tripanionship for like 3 weeks, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. Boughton, he was there when I got into the area, and they were in Kirkcaldy, and we were in Glenrothes, and the members in Glenrothes were all the Rockstar members. And the members in Kirkcaldy, they were nice, but they didn't want to feed missionaries. And I remember we had a calendar that we'd pass out, and there would be people's names marked out, like by other sisters going through a relief site. They'd be like, no, you can't have this day. They're coming to my house. And then we'd have like 2 names on it, and somebody's name's like crossed out. We're like, oh no, like what do we do? We can't. Like people are fighting over it. And the Kirkcaldy elders, they hated it because their sheet would pass around with it, and they have like 1 lunch appointment. You guys suck. We'd have like lunch and dinner. Like, this is the best area ever.
Yeah, I ate so good there.
You guys have to do exchanges with us so we can get some food. Yeah, they were. We met a ton of people there, though. Like the Mackays, Billy Mackay, and his family lived really close. They lived like a couple blocks away, and I think he was investigating the church. He ended up getting married to his girlfriend, who he was living with at the church, and we went to the wedding. It was awesome. Everybody was decked out. And then we met, we chapped into, I want to say their last name was Mackay, and they were a family. And they were lived in a little tiny flat, and they had a greyhound that the dad had rescued from the track. And it was so big, but it would curl up into like this little tiny like ball, because they're so skinny. There's nothing to them. It would just curl up into nothing. And its name was Flaming Katie. It was like its track name. And it had broken its leg, and they had adopted it. And it's like this, when you went to their door, it'd jump up on you. It's massive. It was like as tall as me, huge dog. Mm-hmm. And then it'd curl up in the corner and be like, you can't even tell this dog was there. It's a massive dog. They were awesome. They had been talking to like the Jehovah's Witnesses. She was awesome. He read the Book of Mormon like in a night, and then kind of was like, well, I don't know. And she loved it. She was all about it. She stopped drinking, stopped doing all this stuff. I think she got baptized after I left, and they had a couple of kids, and her son actually just died, who was like a little kid when I was there. It was really sad. And she's had a lot of problems, had it pretty hard, but he was like 15 and he just died, which is
sheesh,
pretty sad. Yeah. But yeah, Boughton was with us, and definitely I think there's a reason you're in the companionship, not with 3, because when you're with 3 is way too fun. And yeah, it's awesome being in a tripanionship. It's so much fun. And he was so creative. You got to have Boughton on. He's awesome. I don't know. He's a pretty quiet guy, but when he opens up, he's like probably one of the most creative people that I've ever met. And we stuffed a single bed into that. I don't know what place you were in, Jack, but we were in like a little house in like a row of houses. Like a little...
I found the house for y'all, but I left before he moved in there.
Oh yeah, it was so nice. It was like a super nice little house. It was in a big row of houses, and we had like a backyard. We we burned like a tie back there, and we did like a barbecue back there, and it was awesome. It was a super fun place. Me and Marsh got sick one day. It was before we had Boughton, and we were both just were feeling terrible, and we had to figure out how to turn the heat on. We finally, in our delirium, figured out how to turn it on, and we like spent all day in the flat. But it was such a nice place, and so we stuffed another single bed in, and all three of us were in that same bed now, or that same room, and we'd tell Elder Boughton to tell us bedtime stories every night, because he'd always come up with these, like off the top of his head, he'd be like, all right, there's like this night, and he'd like make up this whole elaborate tale, this whole story. He'd be like, holy, like, I can't believe you just told me that story out of nowhere. Like 30 minutes later, he's like, yeah, maybe I should like write some of these down sometime or something. Like, yeah, you're so creative. This is like, but he would always come up with just awesome, crazy stuff. He was a blast. Yeah, me and Elder Marsh had a great time. I think Elder Boughton either then left or got a new companion and went back to Kirkcaldy, because Kirkcaldy flat was just empty for like 3 weeks. And me and Elder Marsh were together for 3 months, and it was awesome. We saved up all of our miles one month, and we did a big castle tour, and we drove from our place in Glenroth was like clear out to St. Andrews, and we had a great big map, and we hit every little like castle and ruin along the way. We spent all day doing it, all P day, and it was so fun. And then we came back, like we'd seen like 25 castles. It was great.
Nice.
That's cool.
That's what Zack and I would do up in Peterhead.
Yeah.
Every little ruin symbol.
Oh man, they're awesome to see. Yeah,
it was
like,
a lot of cool places.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, so I've heard you mention Tom, playing cribbage with Tom.
Yeah.
He was awesome. He was so funny, and he talked so slow. But we would go and play cribbage with him every week. And he would cheat so bad. He was such a, and he was like old, so it's really obvious when he'd like cheat and like take another card. But he always thought it was so funny. Like if he won, he'd be like, "Oh, you guys, I got one over on you." Like,
yeah,
Tom, we saw you cheating. Like, and cribbage is supposed to be played with 4, and we like make up a way to play it with 3, and we'd play it with him all the time. It was so fun.
That's what I told Fish. Like I didn't realize that that's not cribbage until I was looking at the rules after my mission. I was like, "Well, this is a completely different game." So my wife and I play Tom's way.
Oh, nice. So. Yeah. It was so fun playing with Tom. He'd always pull out the penguin biscuits and be like, "Here you go. Here's some biscuits, and we're going to play cribbage for an hour."
Yep.
Awesome. This is time well spent. And he didn't really have anything else going on. I always kind of felt bad that he looked forward to that time with the missionaries all week. And we hadn't quite made the shift, or else I think I would have pushed to spend more time with him, because he was a good member, and his wife had died, and he's just alone and just lonely.
Yep.
Oh man.
We also saw, I can't remember who the lady was, but we went and had soup with her every week. And she'd make homemade soup, and it was always different.
I don't remember.
She was
her name.
super old. Yeah. It was, oh man. That's where I got a love of soup. It's that lady. And she'd be like, "This has been sitting on the stove for 3 days. It's just hit the point where it's right." And you look up, and some of the Scottish stuff is like, yeah, it's the best on the 3rd day. And she had made it, and then like put the top on, let it sit simmering, and just like bubble down, like stick to your ribs, keep you warm for the whole rest of the day soup. Like it was pretty good. It was definitely the best stuff. I had my first Guy Fawkes night there, and I don't really know what it was, right? Your first time, you don't really know what Guy Fawkes night is. So the patriarch was in our area, and he came and picked us up. He's like, come over to my house. We're having like a get together. It'll be awesome. Great. let's do this thing. We're having a get together. So we go over there. We go in, and then we have dinner, and he's like, okay, missionaries, I need a little bit of help. Come out to my car with me. We go out, and he's got like 4-foot long rockets, like 30 of them, right? A ton of these huge rockets. And I'm like, these would no way be legal in Utah, right? But he's like, grab a bundle and bring him into the backyard with me. I'm like, okay, this sounds awesome. And he's like, okay, I need you guys' help. We're shooting these suckers off. Okay, sounds awesome. So we start launching off all these fireworks. We have a great time. And then on the way home, I'm like, I wonder if it says anything about that in the White Handbook. I'm like, oh, there it is. Missionaries should not light fireworks. Nice. Like, it was the patriarch. Who cares? Like, he knows better.
You were authorized by the best of the authorities.
He became the mission president later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if he was right after President Fredrick's or the next, after that, but
okay. He was awesome. He was such a fun guy. Yeah, he was it was really funny. Let's go light some fireworks off. All right.
Yeah. He was on my mission, so we were at his house one time, and he was quoting Blazing Saddles with his son-in-laws, and he's like, elders, you've got to see this when you get home. You've got to see it. So I got home and looked at it and was like, really? This? This is what the snake patriarch was recommending?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's not rated appropriately. And
I mean, rating's different over there.
Yeah.
Ratings, like, I can't remember what it is, but there's no R rating. So
17 and older was it's pushing it, but not quite bad enough for us to make it an R rating or whatever.
Well, I remember it was like a different rating system. I can't remember what it was, but I had a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I've never watched an R-rated movie. I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, oh yeah, watch this movie. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, it's a workaround. We don't have our ratings over here. I'm like, oh, okay.
He also took us to his house on, I think it was Christmas Eve or like one of those days where there wasn't a lot of missionary work going on. And he had at his office, they networked all the computers together, and we all played Call of Duty, like 20 guys networked together.
That'd be awesome.
Oh man,
that'd be awesome.
What a legend!
Is that where the Maitlands were? Jim and
Georgine?
Yeah, they were so nice. He passed, didn't he?
Yes,
a little while ago. Yeah, he was like the most jolly guy.
Yeah,
just big red cheeks. He's so happy all the time. He's awesome.
If you listen, so Parmenter, I think, was our last episode on here, and talked about him a little bit. He was pretty against the missionaries, actually. Just before I got to the area, when I got to the area, he wouldn't even sit in the same room as us when we went over there for DAs, but by the end, he was active and fully involved. I think he was even called as a ward missionary. So,
oh wow, yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think they were ward missionaries when I was there, and they were great people, really fun. So then I was done with
a lot of rock stars.
Oh yeah, it was a great area. Yeah. The Lutkins were super fun too. They lived out a ways, but they were awesome. So when I left, Elder Little came in and Marsh trained Little. And he ended up marrying Shona Lutkin from that area.
Oh.
They came over. It's been like 8 years ago, but I saw him when they came over. He's a rock star. He's actually my companion later. But then I moved to Paisley with Elder Lynch. And Elder Lynch had been trained by Elder Barber. And so I got to meet my brothers. And it was fun. And we just talk about stories with Barber all the time. It was a blast. And we were our apartment had 4 missionaries in it. So Elder Harrison and Elder Wilcoxon were in our same apartment. And they had come in, and I can't remember what the other area was called in Paisley. but we were all four together in the same apartment, and they were like looking for an apartment. And so I think it was probably 4 weeks in when they finally found one and moved out. So they had their suitcases open, and they slept on the couch. Elder Harrison took the couch, and Elder Wilkinson pushed 2 chairs together, and he would sleep across the 2 chairs. And me and Elder Lynch slept in the beds in the other room. And like, man, we put up with some stuff. And that's probably even worse than a tripanionship, having 2 companions in the same house. Because it was a blast. It was like the best 6 weeks. It was right during Christmas, and we were all together, and it was in Paisley. And in Paisley, they do the ward for Christmas Day. No matter what day it's on, they have a service at the church, and they just sing all the Christmas hymns. So like 200 through 212, which are just the Christmas hymns, and that's it. And everybody, if it's not on Sunday, everybody comes in like pajamas. And we went, and it was so much fun. Like all the ward was there. It was at like 10:30 or 11 or something. So kind of after morning Christmas. And it was like, I always thought that was such a neat thing that they did, because it really brought like the ward family together and helped you center the day again by singing those hymns. And it was just quick. Like they come in, they sing the hymns, and then they would give the missionaries their presents, and that was it. So all the missionaries got this great big bag, like 3 foot by 3 foot bag that all the members had kind of chipped into. And there was like some pound coins, like everybody got 10 pounds, and deodorant and shampoo and like some sweets and some different things. There's all kinds of like goodies in there, right? And they just really like cared about the missionaries. And there was an old lady, I can't remember her name, but she always got a hug, and she would kiss you on the cheek on Christmas. She's like, I know it's against the rules, but it's Christmas. Give me a hug. And I can't remember her name, but yeah, she was awesome. And we started Xbox night there. So President Fredrick was still pretty new, and I think anybody could talk him into anything, honestly. And that kind of swung dramatically both ways. Some people swung it like way hardcore, and it was like not a good thing. And some people swung it like way lenient, and that probably wasn't a good thing either. But they were pushing member missionary work, and me and Lynch were like, hey, if we get the young men to all bring a friend, what do young men like to do? They like to play Xbox. That's what I like to do. So let's talk them all into bringing a non-member friend. Missionaries are going to host an Xbox night, and they can all bring a non-member. We'll teach a lesson from Alma, some war lesson, show them how cool the Book of Mormon is. And then we got 2 TVs, and we put them in different rooms, and 2 Xboxes, and we played like 4-on-4, and we'd play Halo.
Oh my gosh, that's up my alley. That's brilliant. Well done.
We would spend a couple hours driving around to people's houses, because we'd pick up TVs and we'd pick up Xboxes, and we'd have to pick up enough controllers from throughout the ward to put this together every night or every Wednesday night. And so then we'd come, and we'd have a good lesson, maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. And we'd draw like a big battle plan of what they're talking about in Alma on the board, like to try and make it a little more fun, a little more appealing to kind of youth. And then we'd be like, all right, let's go kill each other. Sounds awesome. And we'd go, and I think probably some members were like, okay, this is maybe a little irreverent. Because I think it ended after that. I left, and it ended. I can't remember if it ended right when I left, but it ended pretty soon after. Elder Lynch, he was so good, and he would always go by Neil Diamond. That was his call sign. And man, even today, if I play a game, I'm like, better watch out for Neil Diamond. You see that guy coming around the corner, he's got a rocket launcher, and he's going to kill you. Yeah.
Oh man, that's too good.
Every one of the young men they were like, we're going to be there for sure. We're going to be at this activity. We're bringing a friend. Like, I don't think it did anything, but they all brought somebody, and it was fun. They got excited about it a little bit for a little while.
Yeah, for sure.
We did one of the members, I can't remember their names there, but one of them, he called us up one night. It was like 9:00 or 9:30 maybe. He's like, elders, I need your help. And it was Christmas Eve, and we had just spent it with another family and hung out for like all day at their house. He's like, elders, I need you to come over to my house. I got this thing that I need some help with. I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird, but we saw him a ton. He had two boys that were way into the stuff. And we get there, and he had bought a foosball table for Christmas for his boys, but he had bought the last one at the store, and it was already assembled. So he had one of those vans. He like delivered parcels, and he had this van. It was stuffed with this foosball table, and he's like, I need to get it up into their room somehow tonight. And it was like 10:00 by the time we got there. We're like, it's Christmas. We're gonna be Santa's little helpers. And so we're trying to fit this thing up his stairs, and it's got the legs on it. We're like moving it in, banging on the walls, and his two boys are sleeping in their room. He's like, I want it in their room. We're like, can't we put it in like the living room? Like, no, I want it in their room so they wake up and see it. We're like lifting this up, trying to fit it through. Like, his wife's like, stop putting holes in the walls.
Jeez.
Oh, we finally got it up there though, and neither of them woke up. And we went over the next day and saw them, and they were pumped about it. They were so excited, but it was pretty crazy. 4 missionaries laughing and giggling, trying to get this thing up the stairs and get it into this room.
That's kind of how it goes there, right? It's like, who can help us?
Oh yeah,
call them.
Yeah, and the missionaries are honestly always up for it, but always like an opportunity to help members. Yes, loved like any opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, we set. I think they set a record when we were there for most consecutive days rained. It rained for like 70 days straight, and it would pour in the morning, and then it would be like nice in the afternoon. But it would like we'd have to change all of our clothes, shoes, everything when we come in for lunch, because you'd just be soaked. Nothing would make it through the morning rain, and it just would dump on you. It was crazy. We let's see. There was one other thing. Oh. So we had all been together for like 4 weeks, right? And we'd gotten used to hanging out, doing a lot of stuff together. Pretty much a constant sleepover. And so when Harrison and Wilkinson got their own flat, theirs was nice. And so I remember we went and slept over at their place, and the zone leaders weren't terribly happy, and it was McConkey and Martin who were the zone leaders at the time. And McConkey was kind of, I mean, like he was a stick in the mud about a lot of stuff. Like he was a nice guy, but he didn't like to have fun. I think he had a lot of pressure and a name to live up to, but he was a stick in the mud. And so they showed up in the morning when we were there, and me and Lynch are there, and we know that we're not supposed to be sleeping over at this flat. And so they buzz at the front door, and they're on the bottom floor, this apartment, and it's got this hallway that connects 2 glass doors that are outside, and you can see down it. And we're like, crap, what are we going to do to sneak out of here? And there's like a window, but it only opened like 6 inches. We're not going to make it out of that window. And we can't hide in the apartment while these guys are here. So how are we going to make it out without them knowing? We're gonna go for it. We're gonna try. And so Wilkinson's like, "Hey, go to the other door, so I can buzz you." And they're like, "Just come out." Like, no joke. The apartment door was probably 15 feet from this glass door. They're like, "No, I just want to buzz you in. Just walk around. It's not that big a deal." And somehow he convinced them, and they walked around. And as soon as they left that door, me and Lynch snuck out of the apartment and ran out that door as they came around and walked in the other door. And we barely made it out. Lynch didn't even have his socks on. I don't think he had his shoes on at the time. He's just carrying his shoes. We had like half of our clothes on, and we ran out into the street and like down the block, and then put our clothes on the rest of the way. Because we were like, oh, we'll just like study in the morning. Like, we don't need to put our suit on yet. No big deal. We just wear our shorts. So we have like our shorts on underneath our suit now.
Nice.
We called him later. He's like, they never knew. You got away with it.
Jeez.
They had like shown up unannounced. And I think they had said something like, yeah, we wanted to make sure you guys were having to sleep over or something. We're like, yes, got away with it. They were pretty close too. Like they didn't live very far away and just got used to having fun. I remember Lynch, we met his grandma for the first time when we were together. His dad was born in Scotland and his grandma still lived in Scotland. She lived in the Paisley area.
Oh,
And
wow.
we went and met her, and maybe he had met her like when he was a baby, when they had gone over there or something. But we went over and met her, and she was like 95. She was super old, and she had like a huge magnifying glass on the TV so she could see it, and her phone had letters that were like this big, right? So she could dial. Like she couldn't see anything. And he's like, "Oh, hey, Grandma, I'm here. Like I'm Mackay, Hey." She's like, "Oh, And she's telling us how she took her like her little wheelie jazzy scooter and drove across the street to go get some food. She's like, I can't really see, so I hope cars aren't coming when I go across the road. And we're like, oh man, that sounds kind of dangerous. She's like, okay, time to make my mark as a grandson. We're going to go to the store and get you some food, Grandma. She's like, okay, can you get me, she lists off a couple things, and one of them's like a wheat loaf. She's like, can you get me a wheat loaf? We're like, yeah, sure, of course, no problem. We get to the store and we're looking everywhere. And we're like, what is a wheat loaf? Or maybe it's like a yeast loaf or something, right? And we're like, and he's over there. He's like, this is my first time meeting my grandma. I'm going to let her down. I'm not going to be able to get her this thing that she needs, that she's asked for. It's all I can do. And there was some old lady there. And we're like, hey, excuse me, do you know what like a wheat loaf is? She's like, oh yeah, it's just like a loaf of bread. She's like, it's a pretty old term for it though. Like my grandma used to say that. We're like, yeah, like his grandma says that too. We finally got the stuff and got it back, and like I think we went and saw her another time or two while I was there, and then he stayed, and it was like the next transfer she died, and his family came over, and like you got to see his parents and stuff, but it was funny. Like we went and met his grandma for like the first time.
Wow.
Together and almost failed her in getting the wheat loaf.
Wheat loaf.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible though. I mean, God knows more than we do, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's incredible.
It was good. Well, I just noticed what time it is, and I mean I can keep going, but I don't want to hold you guys. This seems like it's taking forever. I got way too many stories.
I'm good. Working from home tomorrow.
Yeah, realtor life. I'll do what I need to do.
Oh. All right. Well, I'll get rushing through then.
Keep rolling if you want.
Yeah.
I'll try and go quick. Okay, so Galashiels is where I went next. South of Scotland. It was awesome. I was there with Elder Buckley, who was from Lehigh. He's a rock star. And I'm pretty sure we had Elder, I can't remember his name. Drower. He's from Canada. Driarden, something like that. But he was awesome. We saw them, and he had some issues. He had like Lyme disease or something that he was dealing with. It was kind of crazy, but he was super cool. And I think Harrison was his companion. Or Harrison was in our zone. Me and Harrison had left, and Wilcox and Lynch had stayed together, and they had combined that down to one area. And me and Harrison went to the same district, but different areas. And so we had a blast because we had just been like living together, even though we weren't companions. We do switches and splits all the time, and pretty much do everything together, all four of us. But it was a blast. But we went down, and I was with Elder Buckley down in Galashiels, and we lived in Selkirk, which is like 8 or 10 miles outside of the town that the church is in. And I don't know why they had chosen that flat. It was a weird, like, place clear out in the middle of nowhere, but they had like a fireplace and 2 big swords above it, and they had a couple dings in them. A few people had fought with them. We tried them out. They were awesome.
Yeah, we've heard some stories already.
Oh yeah, but we had a good time. I can't remember. I remember Sister Fredrick's when we were down there at one meeting said, you guys need to stop. We had a big puzzle that we would do, and we would leave it out, and we'd do like a little bit at lunch and maybe a little bit like at night after we were done planning. It was like 5,000 piece puzzle, huge thing. We just kind of like periodically work on it, right? Like a few pieces every night, and we're like, whatever, it's just kind of sitting out on the floor. And she specifically came out, she's like, hey, you guys need to not be doing puzzles on your P-Day. Like, this is ridiculous. You're in Scotland. You need to like be going into Edinburgh, and you need to be going to all these castles and all these museums and all this stuff. It's like most of the stuff that she listed off cost money to go to. And it was like all the really nice places. She's like, if you haven't been to Stirling Castle, you need to go. It's like, well, that's like a zone away from where I am right now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we can't just like, we don't have this all day to do whatever we want. By the time you have morning study and then you go shopping and then you know, like you've got what, maybe 6 hours to like do something. It's like, first of all, I can't leave my zone. I can barely leave my district. And I can't just go and visit all these places that you can go at any time. She's like, yeah, you need to do this. Like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy?
You should have told her to fill up the Mission P-Day fund, and she would have been like, what's that? Oh, sure, yeah, we just have money that we can draw on any time. Come on.
Seriously. Yeah, it was, I don't know. It was weird, but there was a push with, I think it was with Elder Little. After Elder Buckley, I became the district leader in Galashiels, and it was for Dumfries, clear down in the south. And it was us and Dumfries and a senior couple. It might have been the Orchards, but it was it was Elder Harlow, and I can't remember who he was with. Maybe he was with Elder.
I could probably tell you. Let's see if I think you're right.
Maybe he was with Elder Luke's.
Yes, he was with Elder Luke's before he had Elder Powell.
So they were like the 2 smallest missionaries in the mission. And I heard they were stuck in a caravan, and it was so tiny. And I asked President Fredrick, he's like, yeah, they're the only people that could fit in that thing. Like, that's why they're there. Because I got to have 2 missionaries living in a caravan. These guys are the smallest guys we have in the mission. They're down there together because they're the only ones that are going to fit.
Oh my god!
It was so small. And so the first time I was like, all right, we're having a district meeting. We got to go down there because they didn't have a car, and it was the Orchards and them and us in our district. And I was like, okay, it doesn't make any sense to have those 4 come up to us in Galashiels. We'll go down to them in Dumfries. So it's too far. Like, we have a car, but it's too far to drive once a week. Our miles are not gonna do it. So I call up the bus, whatever the bus station. I'm like, hey, here's where I need to get. I need to be here by 10 a.m. How do I do it? And they're like, oh, you catch this bus from Selkirk, get on it at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then you make this transfer, and then you make this transfer, and you'll be there. I'm like, okay, you know what? If that's what it takes, fine, whatever. So I think it was me and Little. We get on, and we're like, sweet, we're going to get there. We're going to be on time. And as we're riding on this, or like the bus, it was so early, we're both just like passed out in these seats. And finally, we get to the stop, and they're like, hey, this is Carlisle. We're like, oh, that's where they said our stop was. Okay, let's hop off. We hop off, and I'm looking at this house, and there's an English flag. And I'm like,
you left the mission.
That does not look right. I haven't seen an English flag in Scotland, and I've been here like a year. That seems weird. But I don't know, maybe that's, whatever. And we hop on the bus, and then we see this, as we're going back in, we see this, welcome to Scotland. And I'm like, oh no, welcome to Scotland. They're like, oh, that's not good. Okay. Let's just go to district meeting and we'll act like nothing happened. No big deal. And because it's a weird geographical area, there's not like a direct way to get there. And the buses just they only go a certain route. There's kind of some small roads to get down there, but it was weird. So then we leave district meeting, and we're like, well, there's only one way to get back. We don't have our car. So I guess we're taking the same route.
Oh,
so this time we're awake, and it's like, leaving Scotland. Welcome to England. We're like, that's probably not the best. And we catch our transfer. We get back in, and no joke, we got in at 5 p.m. And it took us from 5 a.m. and then district meeting to 5 p.m. to get home. It took forever.
Oh,
and I called President Fredrick. I'm like, President Fredrick, look, I've just been to England. I'm not happy about this. I need you to give me unlimited miles on my car so I can drive to district meeting. This is ridiculous. He's like, hold on a second. What'd you say about leaving the mission? I was like, look. So I told him the story. I'm like, look, I don't really know. And I was asleep when we left the mission, and I woke up in a different country. And he's like, okay, you know what, Eldernay, that's fine. Don't leave the mission again. You can have as many miles as you want, unlimited. I don't care what miles you put on. And I was like, okay, great. And so then we got to ride this road. It was the most amazing drive to get from Galashiels to Dumfries. You ride across a couple lakes, and we had the Corsa 1.2. Which was the turbo.
You had the hot rod.
We had the sporty hot rod, and it was awesome. Oh, and there's all these blind corners, and I was the only one that could drive. And it was so fun. Started loosening up the back a little bit, going around those corners, and it was a blast. I looked forward to Monday just so I could go on that drive.
I love that drive too. I was in Dumfries though, going up to Selkirk, and made the same. I left the mission same as you, but in a car, because we were just looking for the border. I'm like, I'm going to get a picture. Welcome to Scotland, where is this sign? And then it's like, oh, there it was.
Yep, there it was. So did you ever stop at the Grey Mare's Tail?
Doesn't ring a bell.
So it's right on that. It's right on that drive, and it's the tallest free-falling waterfall in Scotland. And it's a hike, right? It's It's not a hike. It's a little hill walk, but it's awesome. You walk up this area, and there's sheep all over the place in this valley, and it's gorgeous. So I made sure to do transfers with both Elder Harlow and Luke, so I could drive 2 more times. And we always stopped at the Grey Mare's Tail so we could check it out and hike up to it in 10
Pretty
minutes
cool.
to hike to the top of it and come back down. Yeah, it was awesome. We went out and saw. So they're living in the caravan, and we head out to see a family. And on the way back, we start hearing these pops on our car, pop, pop, pop. I'm like, what the heck is that? And we pull over, and the road is covered in these little toads that have all come out.
Oh no!
And that's what we were hitting. We're like, oh man, I don't know what we do, but we decided we'd catch one and keep it as a pet. We're like, yeah, let's have a flat pet. And me and Buckley had already had a flat pet because there was a girl. I can't remember her name. Rosalind was the mom. It's Rosalind Peterson. And she had a daughter that either had some sort of disability, and she had these hamsters that she loved. And they were going on a trip, and the missionaries would come and see them a lot. And she's like, can you please take care of my hamster while we're gone? We're like, yes, of course we can. That sounds amazing. So we took the cage with the hamster in it and the hamster ball. We're like, of course we can take care of your hamster. You're a member in need, and we need to help you. So we had it for 3 or 4 days. It wasn't long, but it was glorious. We had this little hamster, and we put it in the ball to roll around during morning study. You'd hear it roll into the next room. roll back, roll under. We're like, this is so awesome. We have a pet.
Jeez.
So then after that we were jonesing for another pet. And we got this toad, and we named it Spud, and it lived in our sink. And we only had it for a couple days, and then we thought, you know what? It would be hilarious to hide this in the caravan. So we took it with us because the church we met at, their caravan was parked in the parking lot, like on the church, right? And they would go into the bathroom to like use it to wash up because it was so small, and they'd like run a hose out, and they use the church kitchen to cook in. So then we took it in and we hid it in their shower. We thought, oh, this will be awesome. We'll hide it in their shower. It'll jump out. One of them will get scared. And we called later, and they were like, oh yeah, we just thought it like came in through the piping of the caravan. Like, we were like, man, after all that, we lost our pet, and we didn't even get a good joke out of it.
I mean, they're already living in a caravan. They're living in a joke anyway.
Yeah, they were having it pretty rough.
Jeez. Oh,
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, me and so we had a guy that we were teaching there though in Galashiels. His name I think was Tommy, and he had been taught for quite a while. And McLeod had taught him, and there was a big push to commit people to baptism. So like, great, let's ask him. Like, he's been asked a lot of times, but we convinced him to get baptized, and he was like, okay, I will get baptized if McLeod can come down and baptize me. And we got permission, and so McLeod came down, and it was awesome. He was a blast. We hung out with him for like a whole day, and he came down and baptized Tom. But the Galashiels building was the first stage of a stage 3 chapel, of a 3-stage chapel. So they build like the one side with just the classrooms, and then stage 2 is the chapel, and then stage 3 is the other side classrooms. So we just had classrooms there, and we had like one, like a Relief Society room, and then like 3 offices rooms, and that was it. It was super small little branch, and the font was just some boards over a hole in the ground. So we pulled them out, cleaned it out, and like every other church in Scotland, the hot water didn't work. And so we spent like 3 hours that morning with every kettle that we could find. We called up board members, went and got all these kettles, and we had the stove with 4 pots on it boiling, and dump them in as soon as they would go. We'd dump all this stuff. And he came out of there, and we had spent all this time. He came out of there beet red. He's like, it was pretty hot in there, guys. And McLeod was like, we probably could have added a bit more cold water. It was pretty, we just been like putting all this boiling water in all this time, and we hadn't tested it. And we're just like, it's probably going to be cold because it's been sitting there so long, but it just held its heat. And he's like, it's like a hot tub in there, guys. Like, it's so hot.
You steeped them.
We did.
That's too funny.
We did. He was a funny guy though. He was awesome. He was cool. But he got really sick after that and spent like 4 weeks in the hospital because he kind of went in for something. And then obviously with, UK hospitals, once you get into the hospital, you start catching everything else. And then all of a sudden you're sick in there for 6 weeks or longer.
Oh, jeez.
And he kind of, I don't know if he just wanted to see McLeod again or what, but we were struggling to get him to come to church after that baptism. And he'd been sick for we went and saw him every week, if not twice a week in the hospital. Like, he was legitimately sick in the hospital. But it was hard to not have any momentum from baptism to going to church to making it. And so, I don't know, it's kind of difficult, but yeah, that's when kind of hammer time was taken off, was right during that time. And they were really pushing it hard in the Edinburgh zone. And they came down to our area and they were like, hey, We need to get rid of, obviously, Sister Fredrick has said no puzzles. You need to put this puzzle away. We need to throw it away or give it to a charity shop. We're like, what are you talking about? That's our puzzle that we spent like 6 weeks working on. It's only half done. They're like, we need to get, they went through our kitchen and they got rid of everything they deemed unhealthy food-wise and chucked it all. And, a lot of flats had extra missionary stuff that missionaries kind of left behind. And I thought it was a great thing because I picked up some soccer cleats, some nice ones that somebody had bought and then left. And I have a size 13 and they just happened to be a size 13. Maybe they were yours.
They weren't, because I did the same thing. I found a pair and still have them somewhere.
They were T90 Nike cleats, like really nice ones. And I was like, sweet, a pair that fits me that I can wear to all these soccer games we go to and play with members.
Yeah.
It's great. This is another missionary doing a favor, passing it along. And they came in and just cleared the flat. They were like, those swords on the wall, those got to come down. We're like, wait a second. I think those might be part of the flat. Like, that might be the owners. Like, they're put up there like a crest. Like, you can't get rid of everything. They were like, we got to get rid of everything. They just cleared house.
Oh,
and after that, we were like, this is not cool. And yeah, it was pretty bad. That was how Hammer Time started, for me at least. It was not a good experience. It was definitely a little too zealot. And I heard, was it O'Brien that got on? I think,
yeah.
and he, I thought he had a very good interpretation of what happened. I think he was pretty honest about it, pretty good attitude about it. Just, things got out of control a little bit of zealotry maybe. And there's something called the third wave experiment. If you have time in the future, I recommend looking it up. It's very interesting. It's like a 60s experiment. But it kind of happened on the mission, a little too loose gunned, and stuff got a little out of control on, especially Hammer Time. So then I got kicked up to Peterhead, kind of kicked out of the way. But let me tell you, 7.5 months in Peterhead was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you end your mission there then?
No, I ended in Hamilton, and I wanted to end in Peterhead. It was awesome. The only problem was I went up there and they took the car away. And Peterhead is a very difficult area to have with no car. Okay, it's an incredibly difficult area to have with no car. And I went up there with Elder Churko, and we were together for maybe 3 months. I think 2 transfers, and we were in that original flat in Peterhead. It might have been the one that you guys were in, and it was right next to the preacher's house. Were you in that one? It was in Peterhead.
I don't think so.
We had like 3 stories. Had like a walk up to the first floor. It had a sunroom, like a huge tub and a shower, and then like another flight of stairs up to the upper area. It was huge. It was this massive flat.
That wasn't our flat.
The kitchen looked like right across the way into the backyard of the neighbor's house, which was, I think, the Presbyterian preacher's house. And then next to him was his church. So we lived like 2 houses away from his church, which is a weird spot for the missionaries to be. And his wife complained all the time that the missionaries were there looking at her and peeping on her. We're like, it's where our kitchen is. We're just doing the dishes. It's like 5 minutes a day. She's like, they're staring at me. And he'd come over and be like, stop staring at my wife.
Oh, jeez.
We're just doing the dishes.
Yeah,
but
we had a 3rd floor loft flat. We went through the alleyway, up a set of stairs, through a door, up another set of stairs to our flat up top.
Oh, I think it was Bachholt and McCabe that got this one.
Okay.
Because
that would make sense. Because they closed the area. They closed the area after we were there for a period of time, and then they reopened it towards the end of my mission.
Yeah, so they had gotten it. Had a sunroom on the end, which was like really nice to hang out in the morning, read your scriptures, and the sunroom. It was like, this is awesome.
That's nice.
But they had given up the lease and gotten a new one right before I came in. So I only got like a week and a half there. And then we moved down to Mintlaw, and which was better because we didn't have a car.
Yeah.
So like, okay, now at least we live like where we have church and by our empty lot. But it's better than nothing, I guess. But there were a bunch of members in Mintlaw, so we kind of got to spend some time with them. They were really pushing member work, so we spent a lot of time with them. June Bruce was awesome, and she lived like across the street from us, like a street over. And her husband was not a member, Ian, but he was like super nice. He was an awesome older guy, and we would go over and spend time with him. Like we helped build this big rock wall in the back of her yard for her flowers, and we probably stole a bunch of rocks from like those 1,000-year-old rock walls and put them in her backyard. And looking back, I'm like, we like took them from close, but they were kind of like in other walls. Maybe that was not the best place to take them from. But we had a great time. We did a ton of service. We were always looking for service to do. We would still go out. Not everybody did it, but we'd still go knock doors and still go GQ and just try and. We're like, people have been in Mintlaw, but the missionaries have never been here. Based, we don't have a car. Let's do what we can. Let's try and drum up some interest. And we would see people out working in their yard, and we'd say, hey, do you want some help? We'll be back in 30 minutes with our other clothes on. We'll come and help you work in your yard for the rest of the day or whatever you want. Just trying to do anything we could to drum up something, especially with no car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hugely challenging.
The Pedons there in Mintlaw, right?
Yeah. The Pedons, the Prestons are there in Mintlaw with all their little kids. And then the Cools lived clear out on the other side of Peterhead. They were awesome. And they had a son named Johnny. I always thought he had the best name, Johnny Cool. Man, that's so jealous of that name. Yeah, they were awesome. We spent a long time there. I was with Elder Maddock there as well, and we had a great time. So we were in like this house. It was actually a really nice house. And one day I was coming up the stairs, and there was like this wet spot on the floor. I was like, it was like a big wet spot. I'm like, Elder, what'd you do? Did you like spill some water? Like, you want to clean this up? Whatever. He's like, I didn't spill any water. What are you talking about? And we like had a fight about it because somebody spilled a bunch of water right there in the carpet, and neither of us was going to fess up to it. And the next day, I'm in the shower and I hear this big crack, and the bottom of the shower breaks, or the bottom of the tub breaks.
Oh my god!
Like my foot goes through it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And I come out, I'm like, Elder, what the heck? And he's like, yeah, I heard a crack when I was in there, but I couldn't see anything. We had like this mat that kind of covered it, like one of those grip mats over the top of it. It's like, I didn't really think anything of it. That's probably what it was. And then we kind of put two and two together. We're like, that's what the water from yesterday was. There was a crack here, and it was all the shower water had leaked out into the carpet.
Oh,
so we called the landlord. We're like, hey, you need to come fix this. We got a hole in the shower. We can't shower. And June, we saw June all the time. She was like our mom. She like adopted us while we lived there. And she would always have us over for like lunches or dinners or all kinds of stuff. We told her later that day, we're like, hey, our tub broke. This is what's going on. She's like, well, come over to my house and shower because you can't not shower. Like, this is ridiculous. And she lived like a block away. We're like, okay. So then every morning, towel in hand, and we'd go over and she'd like fix us breakfast. We'd go and shower, and then
wow. That's
And it
insane.
took like a week to fix it. It took like way longer than it should have, but it finally got fixed. I was like, all right, well, I guess we're going to walk down the road to get our shower.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 7.5 months with in Peterhead. You had Churtco, Maddock, and did you have anybody else, or just those two?
I think I had Elder Butt for 6 weeks. Right at the end.
Okay.
But I have a hard time remembering now. Yeah, I remember there was so much fun stuff there. Like, did you guys ever go to the Italian place in Aberdeen that was run by the guy who lived in Peterhead?
Yes, we did.
So, it got passed on to the next missionaries, right? So we went there, and he was super nice, and he didn't ever really make it to church in Peterhead. He'd always told us, "Oh, sometimes I make it up there," but he never really made it to church.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like he'd always take time to talk to the missionaries and wanted like a little bit of exposure to the church if he could get it. And we'd love talking to him, and we'd always offer to pay, and he'd always be like, no, you guys cannot pay. Like, I'm not even going to church. You guys got to take this. This is my one opportunity to do something church. So the zone leader saw us one week leaving there, because we'd go after district meeting. We'd go and say hi to him. We'd have lunch, then we'd go catch the bus back, because we didn't have a car. Yeah. So we were catching the bus. We were getting up at like 6:30 to catch the bus into Peterhead, and then get a transfer to catch the bus down to Aberdeen, and then get a transfer to catch the bus over to the church, and then be to district meeting on time.
That's what we used to do too, and we had a car.
Yeah. So they saw us one time. They're like, "What are you guys doing over in this area?" Like, "Oh, we're visiting this member from Peterhead. He's our member. He's not an Aberdeen member. We're visiting him." They're like, "No, you can't do that anymore. You can't see him. We need to be the ones seeing him," because they had heard that we were getting free lunch. Jeez. So he called us the next day, and he's like, "Hey, I just had 2 other guys come in here who said I can't give you guys lunch anymore, and I'm supposed to send you on your way if you come here. Like, what the heck's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, they're his own leaders. They live in Aberdeen, whatever." And he said, "Well, I'm not feeding them lunch. They can go and stick it. You guys better be here next week. Those guys will never get a free lunch from me." And they were so mad because they tried to go and get free lunch from him. So the next week after district meeting, they're like, "We're going to give you a ride back to the bus station today." Like, we've never offered this before. Where's this car ride back all of a sudden now? So we took it back, and then we went over to his place and had lunch anyways, because he was ticked at him. He's like, "You guys better be here. I'm going to be mad." Like, "Okay, well, you're our member. We're going to your place and getting lunch." Yeah, they were so mad that they couldn't get lunch from him, because he was mad the way they had approached it. They'd been like, "You can't give it to those guys. They're not supposed to be doing it," and he was not having it. He's like an old school Italian guy. He's not having that. "You can't tell me what I'm doing."
Mm-hmm.
I remember we were probably not on the best side of the zone leaders. I think it was me and Maddock. They had pushed that we needed to commit people to get baptized, and that was one of the numbers. How many invites can you get? And we were like, "We're going to get the most invites in the mission. We're going to invite like 100 people. Every single person we meet, we're going to invite them to get baptized." Because this is like, there's a point where some of those things get kind of ridiculous, You take them to the point of being ridiculous. So we're going to take it to that point. And we got over 100 invites that we showed up with at the next district meeting, and they were fuming. Oh, they were so mad. We put it up on the board, 100 invites. And we're like, "Yeah, that's what we did this week, guys. What are you doing?" Oh, they were mad that we had done that, because they're like, "These aren't real invites." We're like, "We invited that many people to be baptized. Like, we invited everybody."
That was your door approach.
Oh yeah, we didn't leave somebody new without asking to be invited or to be baptized. And they were always like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you're slamming the door in my face right now, so I'm going to ask you anyways."
That's right. I love it.
We had kind of one last story for there, which is kind of funny. We had taken it maybe a little too hard on our district leader, which I feel bad for. He was a nice guy. I can't remember his name, but he was pretty new. And we kind of just like were jabbing. We were a little bit older missionaries and taking the mick out of him a little bit. But the next day, we were doing service with June, and we were going shopping with her. She was like, I need you guys to come and help me go shopping, get this stuff. Like, okay, fine. So we're shopping with her at 9 a.m. and we get this call on the phone. Hey, what are you guys doing? You need to come down the stairs and open the door. This is ridiculous. We're pounding on the door. We're like, what are you guys talking about? The zone leaders had driven up and arrived at our house unannounced at 9 a.m. and they thought we were sleeping in, and they were super mad that we had been kind of making fun of our district leader. And we're like, well, we're out doing service. What are you talking about? Like, what are you doing here? Like, you just took an hour drive for no reason. And we're like, well, we're over here. Come and see us. And we're like, man, we don't know what's going on. And June, she said, hey, boys, you catch more bees with honey. I'm like, okay, got it. So we get in, and we are just the nicest people you could ever meet to these zone leaders. And they're like, you guys need to, not be so mean, not be making fun of people. You need to be a lot nicer to so-and-so. I'm like, it's just wasn't mean. It was, just in good fun, we thought. Poking a little fun, not a big deal, but apparently you thought it was a big deal enough to drive up here. We're like, well, are you gonna stay up here? Maybe you want to go on splits? Should we go meet some members, knock some doors, do something? They're like, no, we got appointments. We're leaving right now. So they took off and left, and they had made a point of us staying, and June had driven home. So we're stranded there. We're like, all right, well, see you guys later. We'll make it back to our apartment.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, what?
That doesn't sound like a very cohesive group of leaders right there.
No, it's just funny that they were kind of, I don't know, taking some stuff to the extreme. And I think when you're an older missionary, you can poke fun at some of the ridiculous things and be like, it's kind of silly. Some people don't react very well to that. Right?
Yeah, yep.
So made it to my last area, Hamilton, and wrap it up as quick as I can. Was there with Elder Money, and we went in to mend relationships that had been broken in the area. There was some mission leadership and some missionaries that were not welcome in that ward anymore in members' homes. This was full in hammer time, and it was after Bednar's talk about not taking offense. Do you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that talk became nothing I can say can be offensive because it's your choice to take offense or not. And so,
jeez, like
hammer time and that combined to have some very offensive things said to members that they weren't doing what they should. They weren't, they weren't following the gospel if they weren't finding new people to teach, and like just kind of ridiculous stuff. And so we went in and had to patch the relationship with the bishop, with a lot of people who are like, those missionaries are not welcome in our area, in our homes, in our ward. Like, this is ridiculous. It's like, okay, we need to peel it back. And I think we fixed a lot of stuff. I had some, I think, deeper conversations with President Fredrick. It was at the very end of my mission. And I think things started to tone down a lot after some of that got a little too extreme. And I think it's just the maturing, and I think you mature as a missionary, and at the end of your mission versus the beginning of the mission, where you are. And I think that same thing happens with a mission president. And with not having gone on a mission, he was going through that, what you would do as a missionary, right? Whereas maybe President Vriens had the advantage of a couple more years to get some of that, like, see the light, get that maturing, and then step into the next. So I mean, I think he tried really hard, and I think things got out of hand a little bit. Whatever, people got baptized.
Yes.
So my companion left me with 2 weeks left before the end of the mission. President Fredrick called me, said, put him on the train, send him to the mission home. He became a new mission home elder. And I said, great, who's my new companion? He said, you don't have one, elder. Take care of your area. Be safe. I was like, that's not how it works. But like, tripanionship, who's my new companion? The Spirit's your companion. So my last 2 weeks were companionless.
No way.
Taking care of the area, hanging out with my members, just living it up. And
oh my gosh.
it was pretty intense, but I mean, the McGilligans were awesome. John Wright Park was there. He was awesome. Winifred was like our next door neighbor. She was awesome. She was so nice. Yeah. She really, helped take care of us. And
she's one of my favorite people from my experience on my mission.
She's awesome. She sent me a little, like a Scottish greeting bowl for my wedding. And she sends me Christmas cards every year. I send her a Christmas card. And
this one?
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, that's the one.
I got one too.
She got me that, and right before I left, she got me a prayer, said in the Roman something, a certificate that a prayer was said for you in the Roman. And I think a number of people had got that. That was kind of her gift.
So cool.
It was like, and it was awesome. But and honestly, we went and saw her friend that lived in the nunnery. Did you ever meet her nun friend?
I can't say I did. No.
Oh, it was awesome. She had this friend that she'd grown up with that was a nun who'd been in the convent for like 40 years, and she went and saw her once a month.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
We went with her and met this nun who was like, oh yeah, we, like all these holidays, that's when we can watch movies and TV shows on holidays. And it was like, man, I really connect with you.
Gosh, that's unreal.
And they'd talk about all these like made up holidays that they'd find, and like, yeah, so I can watch like the newest episode of this show. And but, yeah, she was awesome. It was a blast. Yeah, it was so much fun. And like the Warks were in that ward, and it was a great ward.
Ryan was probably on his mission by that point, right?
Yeah, Aaron was the oldest that was there. Aaron worked. Yeah,
Aaron was awesome.
Yeah, he was
great families, great ward. Bishop Cameron was amazing. And we just amazing people there. I was only there for 6 weeks, and I felt it in that 6 weeks. I just didn't get to stick around, unfortunately. But just a great place.
Yeah, they were super solid. They were they were awesome.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's where I got my kilt, because I had pretty much taken my whole mission and not done it. I should have done it in Aberdeen, obviously, but I thought I had my whole mission, so I went and did it. My district leader, I think, was Elder Slater at the time. He was like, well, I'll be your companion for today. I was like, oh, great. I have one. Nice. Well, let's go get this kilt for me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the rest was just take care of the area. Make sure something doesn't burn down.
Wow.
That is something else. Clearly, you were more spiritually prepared for that than I'm sure many others were.
I don't think so. I think he's just sick of me, and he's like, "You're going home in 2 weeks. You can just don't get killed, and then we'll be fine."
That's what you should have said. Tell your wife to fill the P-Day fund, and I'll go explore the rest of the mission for my 2 weeks.
Seriously, I need to do what she said. Like, go see Stirling Castle and all this stuff, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, exactly. You had a 2-week P-Day.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was an interesting 2 weeks.
Incredible. Jeez. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've shed some light on your experience of Hammer Time, and as we've talked about with a number of missionaries, it was very polarizing, right? Where
it was.
Some took to it and kind of just grinned and bared it of sorts, in the time that they did, and others were, like yourself, just said, hey, this is not really the best way to do it, especially when you had to go and fix relationships with people that already had great relationships with the missionaries prior to. So there was no necessity to break up those experience or those relationships that are already in place. So
I think a lot of it was kind of older missionaries versus younger missionaries.
Yeah.
The younger missionaries that didn't know any better, that didn't, it was like, it's easy to say, okay, this is all I know, this is what it is.
Right.
And anybody that had worked with President Vriens felt like they were like, wait a second. I was in a mission that was incredibly loving and supportive and, quiet dignity, and we do things a certain way and we care about, like, numbers aren't the most important thing. Making sure people know what they're committing to and having real covenants is important.
Mm-hmm.
And, people do need to come to church 4 times in a row. We can't just fudge that number so we can get a better quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And those, in my mind, was the dividing line. It was like, there were those that kind of saw, I've seen better, we should be better. And then those that said, this is all I've seen, let's gung ho, let's do some summer sales. Let's have at
it. Summer sales. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, do you have any parting thoughts? Any other great missionaries from the mission you haven't mentioned already that you'd like to hear from as we continue in this?
I don't know. I feel like I've said a lot.
You've mentioned some great ones, and again, if you don't have any others, we definitely have our work cut out for us as far as continuing to connect with more of them, and it will happen. Yeah. I'm sure of it.
I mean, I've been listening. Definitely, my companions, they were awesome. Mm-hmm. Wilcox and Harrison, they weren't ever my companions, but they were awesome. I think you said you're going to have DePold on. He was a rock star.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good missionaries that were a blast just to be around, and people that, I don't know, even on the mission, you felt like cared about your well-being and kind of what happened to you. I thought Briggs was kind of that way. He was very genuine. You saw him and he cared. Elder Shinton, he was awesome.
Yeah.
He was a good guy, good dude.
A lot that you've mentioned are people that we've either reached out to or have been in touch with. Some people early on have been a little bit hesitant, but we're getting into the thick of things now, and the more the merrier. I mean, we're not going away anytime soon. So
I'd love to hear from my companions, and even if I have to hear that I was a crappy companion, it's it's better than nothing. I mean, I had a great time with them. I had an awesome time with all of them.
Yeah,
that's what I told my companions. If they want to come on and I'm not on here, just Zack interviewing them, that's cool. Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Just I think maybe as my parting thought, I think no matter who you were and how you took some of the stuff in Hammer Time or beyond, I think everybody went on their mission and sacrificed a lot to be there. And, no matter what happened, or, if you spent your whole mission in the office or whatever, you sacrificed a lot to be there and to be called of the Lord. And I think it's a big deal. And, we share a special bond in Scotland, and the stuff we saw there and the people that we met, and even if you have parted ways or whatever, it's just fun to share stories and hear about the times that we spent together and some of the people that we know, and stuff that happened, regardless of how you're doing now. Hope that everybody's doing well and moving on, but it's just a bond that I don't think needs more than that. We shared time, we had the same goals. We were there.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's happened since.
Yeah, agreed. We've reiterated that a number of times, that it's not about who you are right now. That doesn't matter. We all still had that, a year and a half or 2 year period where we overlapped at some point and shared that brotherhood and sisterhood in Scotland. And that's what this is all about, is connecting with each other again after an extended period of time, and connecting each other, like seeing where we were all connected in some way, shape, or form, areas that we shared in commonality, and talking about experiences with wonderful people that forever changed our lives. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective, and for you sharing that, Dan. Just a quick reminder for anyone who wants to be on the podcast and don't want us to chase them down, send us an email at sempodcast@51spylaw.com. Visit the website, 51spylaw.com, and fill out a contact sheet, or we will find you. I can guarantee that. Dan, it's been so great. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And we love you, and hopefully we'll speak more soon. But thanks again for bringing some joy to us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Sorry I rambled for so long, but it's been good.
No apology necessary. We love you, brother. Thanks so much.
Love you too.
Have a good night. Bye.